All right, can everybody get seated? It's 5:30. We're going to get started with the task force. Hey, Sandy, Sue. All right, let's go and get started. We are broadcasting live. If we're on the website, and then if you go to the website, if you want to participate by Zoom, the Zoom information is on our website at www.islandmirada.fl.us. We are also on channel 77. If you're in Islamorada, you can watch us. You can't obviously zoom in. And so we have several people here in the audience. So we're going to hear some presentations either in person or by Zoom. We have a couple items. The agenda as well as meeting materials are on our website. If you go to our village website, go to agendas and meetings, and click on this meeting, and you'll look at the meeting materials. It'll have all the things we're discussing, all the documents, and then also we're going to get some presentations tonight on Zoom that'll be broadcast. And so I'm Ron Saunders. I'm the Islamorada Village Manager. We have a 5-member task force that I appointed of citizens. One is out of town, Brian Cohn, but he's going to participate by Zoom if he can. We have 2 here in person. We have Tony Hammond and Jamie Engel. Alina Davis is also a member. She says she's on the way, and Captain Richard Black said he was going to try to attend. I haven't heard from him. As far as Village Council, we have in the audience our Vice Mayor, Don Horton. We have Anna Richards, councilperson, looking in by Zoom. She just told me. Our Mayor, Mahoney, says she'll be watching by Zoom, as well as Steve Friedman and Deb Gillis. So all 5 council people will either be here in person or watching. So just want to make sure you know that's why we're having this meeting. It's for the public and for the council to hear as much input as possible. We have several things we want to talk about tonight. We have an agenda that's on the website. One is the revised site plan that was approved on October 7th by the Montgomery County School Board, and then 2 proposed documents, a license agreement and a use agreement that I have submitted to Pat LaFear, the Director of Operations for the district, who's been assigned, as I have been, to negotiate for the village. He's been assigned to negotiate on behalf of the school district. And he has had his staff looking at the 2 documents I sent him. I haven't heard back. And so the latest documents are the ones on the website. They could be changed, but that is a use agreement and a license agreement. The highlights of that would be that basically we're trying to understand whatever type of field it's going to be. The proposal from the school board is artificial turf, that the school district is responsible for all maintenance and replacement, whatever it ends up being. And so that's in the use agreement, the license agreement. The use agreement is basically tied to the baseball schedule, and it just basically says from January through roughly May, the school board would have use of the field for baseball season that we'd have the rest of the time, but we can use it during those periods. For example, I've used the example, it's principal but not exclusive. In other words, during baseball season, if the village wanted to use the field for something, we would just check with the school district. If outside of baseball season, the school board wanted to use it for something, they would talk to us. So we want to have that cooperative agreement there. But there's not a lot more detail in the use agreement and license agreement. I'll certainly take any input tonight. On the revised site plan, the reason it's revised is we had an original plan that we've already heard a couple months ago. I made a recommendation after talking to my village council and also school board members individually, all individually. I said I recommended removing a multi-use building. There was a second building proposed by the school district, and it had some changing rooms, umpires, it had some things there. And even though it wasn't a problem as far as the uses, it was a problem as far as that second building, especially when the school district went over. They had a $5 million hold budget. The first budget real estimate was $6.16 million. And because it was already over budget, I was concerned that they might cut the field. We want the best field possible. And I made a recommendation to remove the second building because there was already a building at the end of the first baseline that a lot of people didn't realize had some of those facilities already there. So on October 7th, Mr. LaFear presented to the school board his proposal based on our discussions. And in the revised plan, they removed the second building. So the only building left proposed is a concession stand / restrooms / press box. And they've also agreed, although it's not part of their budget proposal, to renovate the first base line building so that we can actually have that available this season. And so it looks like we're kind of on board there. So beyond the agreements, I think the main issue that still we need more input on is that the official school board policy that I've been told is that whatever fields they're proposing anywhere in the Keys, not just Alamorada, will be artificial turf. And that they're not looking at putting grass in anywhere. That's what I've been told. That's the school board, not the village. But I'm saying that's kind of where we are with that. So I thought before our council, which has final word, before the council hears this, I thought it was important to hear from both sides and from people that have expertise in the area. And so, and I want to introduce Captain Richard Black. I've already introduced the other two members. Richard is, as I said before, one of the 5 citizen members of the task force. Alina Davis on the way, and Brian Cohn's out of town, but will hopefully be participating. And so basically what we want to do tonight would be, unless we have some issues with the use agreement, let me actually open that up. Did anybody on the task force, I sent these documents to you like a couple weeks ago. Any questions or comments on either the baseball license agreement or the use agreement?
A couple of things that I noticed. On page 13, we still have the 2-year opt-out on either side. I would caution spending, obviously, the amount of money they want to spend on that and have the option of opting out in 2 years. Either way, I think we need to look at that. The other, only because I've been burned on this one, it talks about if the loan is in default, or the agreement's in default, that we can charge the maximum interest rate available or required by law. I would feel better, and I'm not part of the school board, but I would certainly feel better if we had a number rather than, I had a person one time charging me 25% interest per day. That's steep, and that is the amount allowed by law. So I would like to see.
What loan are you talking about? Because I'm not clear what you're talking about.
Let me pull it up. I can look at it.
Because there's no loan involved. This is going to be an expenditure by the school board. They're not lending us any money.
Page 5, G, on page 5.
Well, let me leave it like this. I've given the agreements that are on the website. I've sent to Mr. LaFear. He has referred it to his staff. He'll get back to us. There's no agreement yet. It's still negotiation. So certainly any member of the task force or public that wants to make any changes, we're open to the changes. I think we're kind of in principle in line as far as the agreements go. But any change like that, I'd be open to.
I think we just trust the attorneys.
I don't want to get too much of the weeds here because that's something I think we can work out.
I just want to bring that to attention so that if somebody didn't call it to attention, I didn't want us to get into it and go, oh, somebody should have called us on that.
Well, at this point, the school board hasn't seen it. The school board looked at the revised plan, but not the agreements because Pat LaFear hadn't gotten them and wanted to look at them first. They canceled their meeting. I think it was going to be happening soon up here. And so there's not any school board meetings anytime soon, not till November. And so I think we have time to resolve the agreements. And going back to the revised site plan, the only discussion, we were meeting the same night, October 7th, when the school board met, we were actually meeting here. So I couldn't attend the school board meeting in Key West, but I did see the presentation by Mr. LaFear. In fact, part of it's on our website. And they did eliminate the second building. They brought up my concern about having the concession stand behind home plate, and he made the point that they preferred it behind home plate. And so the revised plan still has the concession stand / restroom / press box there. That's not a discussion for tonight unless somebody wants to talk about it. But at this point, the revised site plan that was voted on, they actually took a vote on October 7th. So the revised site plan that's on our website, once again, is the one that was passed and approved by the Montgomery County School Board. That's the official, once again, preliminary, but it is the design plan. And we have another rival, so I'll introduce her. Our 4th member of the task force is Alina Davis. Thank you for coming. She's a realtor and had an important meeting. And this is a volunteer task force, so you have to take care of a business first. And once again, Brian Cohn is the 5th member, is out of town, but he's going to try to participate. And I guess if he has something to say, he can always raise his hand or whatever, and Frank will let me know. So anyway, the revised site plan now officially does not have the second building. It still has the concession stand, restrooms, press box. Other than that, I'm not sure what other issues are, other than what we're going to discuss tonight is, what kind of field. The revised site plan specifically says, approved by the school board, it's artificial turf. So that's part of what they've approved. Once again, final say and approval has to be by the Alamorada Village Council, but and they've said proceed with negotiations, but officially the only thing that's been voted on right now is the school board's revised plan.
So
Jamie?
I have a couple of specifics. On the use agreement, I really don't understand why we even have a use agreement, because the use agreement is also built into, it's discussed in the baseball field license agreement. So I think, and the use agreement says that every year everybody has to meet, and the village manager meets with the high school principal, and they agree on whatever the use is going to be, and the calendar. The calendar is the same every year. It's a spring sport. It's January through May, and that's really what just needs to be in the baseball field license agreement, I think. One agreement. Nobody's looked at the use agreement for the past 20 years, from what I understand, because I've asked for copies of the use agreement every year, and nobody seems to have it. So why put something out there that nobody's going to look at again moving into the future? So get rid of one piece of paper, save a tree, and
Well,
move
let me,
on.
let me respond for you to the next point.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, because I agree with you. The problem is that before I came, became village manager in April. When I came in, there was an unsigned interlocal agreement, an ILA, that had been approved by our village council last year,
Right.
but apparently was never signed by the manager. And so I went ahead on June 20th and signed it, because in order to get to this point, we had an agreement that had lapsed. And so I thought it was important to have at least an agreement that had already been signed by the school board and by the mayor last year, but not by the manager. So now we have an approved, recorded ILA, at least to be in the discussions. I think what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to amend that ILA. But that's more of a legal situation, because, and so to answer your question, the reason why we did the use agreement, because it's required in the ILA from 20 years ago, that was just basically a rewrite of the current one. I think those things can be taken. I agree with you, because the reason why it hasn't renewed, because like you said, there was no reason to, the season's the season.
Right.
And so but we can take that. I think that's more of a paperwork kind of thing. I agree with you, but I think we have to change the ILA, because I can't violate the ILA. And so we probably will have to, once we get negotiated everything, we'll probably come back and have a brand new amended ILA, interlocal agreement, and take that back to school board and the village council. But at this point, I agree with you. It's just that I had to do it because it's required.
Okay. And so in the baseball field license agreement, it also mentions the use. And I looked at the old one from 2001 and the new one. I think it needs to go back to what the old one is, extremely specific. It was January through May, for tournaments, whatever, baseball and baseball use only for practices. And in the new one, I noticed that there's like the part that reads as well as, there shouldn't be an as well as. And so it should just be like the original one, which was the original intent when they did this agreement, I think, years ago. That it needs to be very specific. There's a lot of different things. So the original one said January 2nd through May, 16 weeks. Tournaments may last through, May. Weekday use only, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. to dark or the end of play. No weekend use unless both parties agree in writing. My opinion, if there's any changes to that, and this is just me, I would say that any changes or any additions, if they had something special they wanted to do with it, then they need to put it in writing, signed by both parties, and it needs to come to the village council. Because I think the other thing we all have to be aware of is whatever the council now agrees to is going to live on for 20 years or more. And so same thing with the school board and the school administration and all the different people. So whatever goes into this baseball field license agreement at this point in time needs to be extremely specific. So there's no questions 20 years from now going, what did they mean? So, I had sent you an email back in September when we originally got this, and I think a lot of it was incorporated into it, but I think it definitely just needs to be very specific. Any type of wishy-washy needs to be taken out of it, in my opinion.
Let me give Tony an opportunity, because he might have a counterpoint. So.
Okay.
Well, absolutely, because our practices are all at night. Our varsity games are all at night, every one of them. JV games are almost 100% on Saturdays. We're not allowed to do anything on Sundays. So, obviously we need to make that provision. And the reason that I believe that other allowance was there was for things like Gigantic Nautical Market and other events, the field days that we have here, where that field could be used during the time that baseball is contracted to be using it. That's what that allowance is for. And we have teams using it now. I mean, we do have teams spill over, you know, at times and do practices over there, things of that nature. So
But for clarification, you're talking about uses that the village wants, not the school district.
correct.
I think what Jamie was
I was
saying
talking about the
was, she was
school
concerned about the
district.
school district using it for
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
And
But
if
I-
the games are at night, then that, I mean, I get
We-
that. Baseball and baseball practice only.
But I know that there are people that have very specifically wanted us to have practice end at sundown or whatever, and that's the opposite of what we do. So I want to make sure that that's clear in this agreement. We practice at night. The temperature issue it's wonderful when we practice, other than mosquitoes that could carry away. But other than that, it's a great opportunity, a great time, and it's also perfect for playing ball because it's at night. You know, it's
Okay.
And I think we're on the same page there. I just think it just needs to be.
Need
like
clarification.
What you just said. Specific. Right. It just needs to be clarified specific so there aren't any questions 20 years from now or 10 years from now when that comes up.
I'd like to get all this input, and this is, by the way, for the public's watching, I wanted to be more of this is not a committee, it's a task force. So
Right.
we don't have a lot of rules to follow. It's going to be
Right.
informal. Somebody said any time limits. I said, within reason, no, you can talk. I wanted to be informal discussion back and forth because I'd like by the next week or so to have all these details worked out in the agreements so that we can, put it to bed. Because I think they're all reasonable points. But as Jamie says, unless it's in writing, a couple of years from now, we don't want to have a dispute. So the more specifics, the better. And once we're done up here, I'll open it up to the public on the discussion we're having now, not the turf versus grass. That's
Right.
coming next. But I said for the agreements, I think that's important to get.
Right. The other thing, and you brought it up basically, was where the school district is at this point in this phase of their plan. They are basically into the design development phase, which is phase number 3. And they voted on that plan, or that new conceptual plan, October 7th. In my opinion, the village residents, the community, is back at phase 1 in the conceptual plan. Because even though we have had conversations about this, even though this task force is here, we have been told, here's what the school board has put together. We're giving our opinion. They are bulldozing straight through. Their next phase is at the construction document phase, which is going to be March 23rd, 2026. I know they're pressuring you to come up, bring this before the council to be able to be voted on, turf versus natural grass. Well, if we're just having this presentation tonight on October the 20th, and the next council meeting is November
10th.
something, okay? I just don't think that that's enough time to give, I mean, people need to take in what they're gonna hear tonight. And it absolutely, Ron, needs to go to the members of this community. They need a voice. If we did a survey previously, or the mayor did a survey, and it was criticized by a lot, so I would recommend we do another survey with like 5 simple questions that are very unbiased, that the Islamorada residents only can answer, and let them give their input. And it should be out for about 30 days, and let the people of this community really have an opinion and get a voice. There's a lot of people I'm talking to that didn't even know about this until we're talking to them about it. And we saw with Miller Leg, that presentation, when they even brought up the fact of turf, tearing up the grass and putting down turf, there was a lot of conversation there. So I think as this is going, more people are coming. I don't want our community and our village council to be on any timeline that the school board has. They have their numbers and their dates and their attitude. They've been working on this for 4 years. We just found out about it because of some community members in December of 2023. It was first brought, and really it's been the last 6 or 7 months, I think, that it's been out. So I don't want our community to be under any pressure to go with what the school district wants just because we pay those taxes too, believe it or not. That's our money. So whatever decision they make to do on this field, it's going to not only affect the residents and the community of the village of Islamorada, it's also going to affect our pocketbooks too, as to what, as we're moving forward. So we have a voice in both sides of that, but I just don't want you or any of our council members that are listening to feel like they have to do this in November or December And I really hope that they listen strongly to the will of the people of this community, because it's really very important.
Well, as I said, Vice Mayor Horton's here in the audience. I've been texted by Anna Richards, Steve Friedman, Sharon Mahoney, and I haven't heard from Deb, but I think she's watching too. So I think all 5 council members are listening. That's all I can say. And as far as what we will do or not do, that's the reason we're having this meeting tonight. This is not required to have this. This task force wasn't in existence. And so this is the first time we've ever had it. And it's been going on. I went back and watched village council meetings. I watched one from 2 years ago, and the conversation was exactly what we're having tonight, and nothing's happened. So that's why we're doing this. We have people from the public. I got 2 people that you're going to hear from later, a professor from University of Florida who is let's just say, a natural grass advocate. We have a representative from AstroTurf Corporation, a synthetic turf person. And these are people that I've vetted, and they are very knowledgeable in their field. So I think it's important to hear from both sides and get the questions answered, because I think our council wants that. And that's what we're doing. But as far as timeframes, I don't feel pressure. I mean, I'm not getting bullied or anything. It's just that basically I think it's time for us to, hear some issues. And the only pressure is going to be to get something done for the team. And we have a former coach here, and I don't know how long these things take.
But you were promised, we were all promised by Pat LaFear at the last meeting, I think it was, that baseball field is going to be in pristine condition, first-class condition, by January for the start of the season. So we don't have our kids playing on a subpar field. They need to have the best of the best. It should be there, and they've had enough time to get it into that condition since we started this conversation.
Well, that's not negotiable. But let me say one thing. That's not even on the table, because that's a given.
Right.
Nothing we're discussing tonight has anything to do, in my mind, with that condition of the field for the next baseball season.
Right.
That's the school board's responsibility. It should be the best field in the state of Florida. There's nothing stopping that. Nothing we do or don't do should affect the baseball field for this upcoming season. The discussion we're having is for what happens after this season. So the timing that has nothing to do with this field. This field needs to be pristine and done right. In fact, I've actually said to Maria in the back, we have our director of Parks and Rec, that I want the school district from now on to be 100% responsible for what's there now. Because there's been an argument, well, who did this and when. It's their field for their baseball team. Let them be responsible for getting in a condition that you're talking about now. So that has nothing to do, to be clear, nothing to do with what I want to hear later about what happens next. For the current field, we need that be ready for this season, regardless of what we do or don't do now.
But the school board's plan, because I've been watching all the meetings, is that they want to start construction at the end of next season, which is April or May.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to get their construction documents and stuff in order by March, which means they have a timeline for December or January to do other things, which means they have to find out whether or not we're doing turf or grass. So there is a pressure on the village council to follow some sort of a timeline. And all I'm asking or recommending to everybody is to slow it down and listen to the people of this community and give everybody the opportunity to listen. And I'm so thankful that we're doing this, but especially that you've got the 2 people coming in that are talking. I think that's going to be a wonderful situation that we can all learn from. So thank you. And I will be quiet now.
And I would counter that and say, we've had plenty of time. It's time to move on. It's time to call it to a vote.
Let's just say there's mixed opinion. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I agree that we have discussed this for quite some time, but yet you still talk to many people in the village of Islamorada that are kind of clueless on this whole thing, not to mention that a significant amount of our taxpayers are not here at the moment and are starting to come in over the next month. That being said, there was a lot of controversy about a survey that was done before, and Jamie said maybe we need to do another one. A thought is maybe we do another survey and have each of the task force members come up with 2 questions for it, so it's non-biased and everybody has their own thing, and we have a 10-question survey that goes back out for, let's say, 2 weeks.
I think a month.
Okay, I just...
Yeah, 30 days.
I mean, in 30 days of having a survey and 1 more meeting, there's no reason why, the council shouldn't have something in front of them by the beginning of the year.
Well, let me make it, once, I was trying to make it clear, I am the village manager with a certain amount of authority, but I have 5 bosses, and I meet with them individually. You know, we can't talk about this stuff unless it's in a public meeting, so, with each other. So I have to deal with each one one-on-one, and I would just, let me just say, there's no consensus right now about what to do or not do. There's several differences of opinion, just as this task force has some differences, so do my bosses. And so let's just say I can't make any commitments on their behalf. They're listening. Mayor Mahoney's just texted me, said she's on now too. Anna Richard, and so they're listening. Steve Friedman, so they're listening to what you're saying. I'm just saying, for tonight, I can't make any commitments that we will or won't do, but I'm certainly going to have that discussion with them. I talk to them once a week, at least by phone, one-on-one, and we've had discussions, I'll just say. But I wanted to have this meeting tonight and let the public come in. Our newsletter goes out on Mondays. This one I put out Friday. First time I put a Friday. You know why? I wanted people on Friday to know about this meeting tonight. I don't want people to say I didn't find out until the day of the meeting. It's been online since Friday because I wanted as much public participation as possible. It's on Zoom. It's on our website. It's on TV. You know, we're trying to get the word out there. So as far as public input, yeah, I don't know about you guys. I'm getting a lot of public input, you know, especially from some of you. And so, you know, but we want that input. But tonight, I want to get through this document thing, but I really want to hear from these experts and from the public. We have some experts in the public too. But let's finish up the discussion on the documents and see if there's any more specifics with the proviso that I think that we need to renegotiate the ILA to address some of your concerns. I don't see anything any of you have talked about so far in the documents that can't be negotiated. There's nothing to me that's a deal breaker in the documents. There's not even a deal breaker in the revised site plan at this point, other than I can't say turf versus grass is a deal breaker. From our standpoint, it may be from the school boards, but I'm saying, is there anything else in either the revised site plan or the use or base of a license that you all want to bring up before I go to the public?
I have on page 2 of the revised agreement, so you added on number 1, licensee shall not sublicense the use of the improvements or property to a third party without the prior written consent of the licensor. So who exactly would give that consent on the part of the Village of Islamorada? Would that be Village Council? Would that be the manager? We know that this all started very quietly with Ted Yates and AJ and the school board. And so Village Council was not involved in that decision at all. So how would you clarify that?
I don't have a personal in one way or another, but I don't see a problem with saying Village Council approval because based on history, the tenure of village managers has not always been that long. And so, I mean, hopefully I'll be around for a while, but I'm not getting any commitments. I'll be around 20 years from now. And so I think it probably the wisest thing would be to have it specifically by Village Council. I don't have a problem with that.
Because that way it would become public.
Yeah.
And so
there's
there
a public
would be
meeting
public
and there won't be
notice.
some backroom deal. I think that's probably a good thing to bring up, and we can look at that because ultimately the Village Council is elected by the voters. I mean, we're not in a pure democracy. We're in a representative form of government. So while it's nice to get public input, in the end, you elect village council members to represent you, and you can't always ask every single person, all 7,000 residents, what you want. I mean, so the village council is vested with the authority to make decisions, but my point was make a decision with the best information possible. And that's really the goal of tonight. But once again, I don't have an issue with the village council making a decision because who knows who the village manager may be in 15 years. And, let's make sure it comes to the council who are the duly elected representatives.
On number 8 on page 10, we talk about maintenance and operation of improvements. So you're saying the licensee at its sole cost and expense shall be responsible for maintaining and operating the improvements. Now, I know that you were a proponent of the school board being in charge of the maintenance year-round, and I disagree with that. I think if the school board is going to hire maintenance company to do that work, the village should hire the same maintenance company to do the work the rest of the time, because when you're giving partial ownership to the school board by saying, well, you have to maintain it year-round, but we get to use it. I would feel more comfortable with an arrangement where the school board pays for their time, they prep it, and then the village pays for it the rest of the time, whether it be artificial turf or God's green grass, as Captain Ed likes to say.
And let me say that that's currently a situation, it's like utilities. We do split those. And so my point, maybe to be clear, was not necessarily who pays, because that's negotiable, and I don't know how much that will be. It's who's responsible. Because there's been some finger pointing where the school district said you didn't take care of the field. Parks and Rec says, no, you were supposed to be taking care of it.
right.
I want to eliminate that and
right.
say, school district, you are 100% responsible 12 months of the year for that field. Now, whether we have to pay for part of it, whatever, but I think we should have consistent maintenance too. I want this, whoever it is for the school board will be the same for our time. I don't want to have different companies, whatever, doing it. Whoever is selected to maintain whatever field it ends up being should be all 12 months of the year. There shouldn't be any opportunities for somebody to say, that wasn't us, that was you.
I
want it
totally
to-
agree.
Okay.
It has to be the same company. And whatever pro forma that they put out, that they're going to do this, that needs to be checked off. You know, did they come? What happened? How much, you know, we have the water usage. Obviously, in, you know, July, went down to $700. August, $1,100. September, $327. October, $442. So obviously, those are the rainy months, right? So to me, this came from the school board, is what I understand, that this
I think it came from
this
Maria.
water bill, oh, the water bill came from Maria? Okay. I thought it had been given by the school board.
The water bills.
Water bill?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the water bills are what they are, you know, so, and once
No.
again, the whoever pays for utilities and how much, we can talk about that. It's, in the whole scheme of things, the numbers are not that huge, and so I think we can work it out.
No, absolutely. They're not that huge, but that's my point. So we need to make sure that there's adequate water being put on the field. And is that part of the maintenance schedule? You know, if so, then who's responsible for that maintenance schedule? Is it the company that the school board hires to take care of the field? I don't know who it is now. Is that Brightview at this point?
Brightview.
Okay, and Brightview moving forward.
Brightview does, I would say, the bulk of the ball fields in South Florida. I mean, I go up into Miami and it's Brightview. I'm sure there are others that do it, but Brightview is ours, and they're responsible for all the fields and all of the schools and all the facilities.
Okay, so when that field goes from pristine condition in January to dead on arrival at the end of baseball season, whose fault is that? Is that not Brightview's fault that they're not maintaining it to the proper level?
That's a great question. I certainly have been, and I'm just speaking for me, I've been pleased with Brightview. I've done a little bit of, gone out with them and said, hey, how about doing this and help us here and there. And but please understand that January, February, and then, well, particularly March and April, those are nightmare months for a baseball field. There are species of weeds that grow up in the middle of the baseball field. It's the driest time. It's the shortest day. I don't know whether it's an auxin and gibberellin thing or what it is, but it is a major problem. I've got 50 years of trying to maintain baseball fields, and I have failed miserably at being able to use and get a good natural grass field to, even though I water the daylights out of it and have an irrigation system, and the same thing out here. It's extremely difficult time, and I have the figures from when I was head coach, and the numbers just are dramatically increased during March and April particularly. And it's not just watering the field. You have to also be responsible for the clay and preparation of the clay, all of those things. that take
Fertilizer.
place. Yeah.
But that is Brightview's
But-
responsibility.
But Alina, I'm just going to interject though, because Brightview just got the contract with the school district this year. They started April of 20, I think April of this year, 2025, and they have a 4-year contract till 2029. So that was the company. So before that, I don't know who was maintaining it. I think it was a mishmash of.
Well, that's what Tony's saying.
Right.
It was
So,
Brightview.
But
And when
I
I
don't-
coached,
was it Brightview prior to this, though?
I don't, Coach Russell might know that, I don't know.
Brightview was the previous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
and if
I
you
think
can't hear
you're-
online, he said Brightview was previous also.
I think your question, though, isn't about it doesn't matter who's running it right now, is in this agreement from now on moving forward, it will be the same company that is used for the whole thing.
Right.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
there
think
should
we
be
all
no
agree on that.
confusion on
Yeah.
that. So I-
Exactly.
I think what he's saying is absolutely accurate, that we need to have one group in charge and one group accountable throughout the season. Are there some things that we could do to help in coaching? This is what we would like to see on our ball field, absolutely. But again, they're limited by time, they're limited by personnel. I think all of the guys, like everybody else, they probably come down from Dade County. And so, they're scrambling when they get down here and have to do all the ball fields. But what Ron is proposing is absolutely the way we need to go with. Have one person, one group responsible. And if it's year-round, just for the baseball field.
Correct.
Then that should eliminate that problem. Because nobody then can go, well, AJ should have been responsible for that. Listen, I work with AJ almost every day, and I can tell you that he's doing a great job, but he's not responsible for that place.
Right.
And Brightview's contract that they signed with the school board requires them to come a certain number of days, spend a certain amount of time to keep a written logbook that you should be able to pull at any date and time that says who was on the field, how long they were on the field, what time they were on the field, what they put on the field, what they did
We
to
just want
it.
that all 12 months,
Yeah,
basically.
So exactly.
We
So
want
it
that
just
all
yeah,
12
I think we all
exactly,
agree on that.
Exactly. So there will.
But I want to make it
Yeah.
clear that the school board pays for their portion and the village pays for,
Well, that's part of
rest
the
of it
negotiation.
portion.
I'm negotiating on behalf of the village, and so as much as I can get the school board to pay, I'm gonna try, but we'll see.
Let me address one more issue before we move past that, because I think it's important. This project that's designated for the ball field, that should not affect our tax dollars in the future. That money's designated and set aside, and so this is not a tax issue. I keep hearing that coming up. This is already decided, already voted on, not an issue that we have to worry about at this point.
And it's staying at Coral Shores. So if they save
Right.
money, so they just reduced the number, I think, at the last school board meeting, that additional money still stays at Coral Shores. If they don't put turf and put grass and do something and save $1 million, that $1 million then stays at Coral Shores,
Correct.
from what I have been told, so it could be used instead of for 30 baseball players, male baseball players, it could actually go to Coral Shores and go to the running track over there.
Well, those
which I
decisions by the
understand-
school board, that's not
No,
something we-
I understand
Yeah.
that, but I'm just saying this out in the open so that the community understands this, not just us.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
that $1 million, let's just throw a number like that, could then go back to Coral Shores, be used on the running track, which I understand needs to be renovated and updated, and it is synthetic turf, I think, or whatever over there. But that money then could go, and that helps boys and girls in running in the track, and I understand PKS is using that track also. So it helps a whole lot of students instead of 30 on a baseball field. And I'm only using that as an example. So I've had people say, we're going to lose the money. No, we're not. Like Tony said, it's already in the budget. It's a capital expenditure. It's there. It's designated to Coral Shores. And so therefore it stays, whatever we spend, whatever we save, it stays at Coral Shores to benefit one program or a lot of students. It just depends.
Well, let's just stay focused for today's meeting, though, on what we're
But-
doing.
but it is a
Not
stay
what the
fo-
school board may or may
But
not.
Absolutely.
it's all, I'm sorry, it's all built in together. We can't, I mean, this
Let me
is,
make the point, though, their initial budget was 5 million, it went to 6.16 because of the recommendation to take out the second building. It's back to 5.1, I think it is. So that number keeps moving, so. I'm
Exactly.
not, I don't want to make it.
I'm just,
I want to make sure I say this, The school board's budget is their budget.
Right, but the
So
school
I
board
can't
is
control what they do or
listening-
don't do.
But Ron, and I hate to interrupt you, school board's listening to this meeting just as well as our village council and our community members are listening to this meeting. So what I want, as I put time and effort into this, is all of us care about this. So the school board needs to be listening to what the members of this community of the Village of Islamorada wants. So I'm not trying to drag this out, but we don't get a lot of time to be able to sit at a table like this and have this conversation. So I'm just making the point that I've heard from people, they think they're losing the money if we don't use it, and that is not the truth. And so it needs to be brought out that that's it. And I will make one comment about the building, since you brought up the site plan or whatever, and you and I have talked about this. I think behind home plate is the prime real estate for seating for a baseball stadium. And I think that building needs to be moved to where the old multi-purpose building was gonna go. And it should go over there, not only for the aesthetics of pulling into our park, that we don't see another concrete two-story building as you pull into the park. We already have the fire department and all that over there. I'd love to see that moved to third base, and I'm sure the architects can figure out a way to do it, because I heard the school board at the last meeting saying, Mr. LaFair saying, oh, it's gonna take too much. Well, guess what? They can do whatever they put their minds to, and I'm sure they're very intelligent. But the biggest thing is the bathroom situation. I would love to see at least one family bathroom in that building. Two? Okay, two, whatever. There's a men's bathroom or women's bathroom. I mean a family bathroom that's a big bathroom that has a changing station that a mom or a dad could bring their stroller and their two kids into a room. Right. So that they can, so a larger bathroom, I did not see that on there. I know that there were bathrooms, but just something big enough for a parent to be able to not have to try to shovel a bunch of people into one little stall. And with a changing station and everything in there, I think that would be really important to make sure that they put that in there. And then maybe on the other side, a men's room and a ladies' room or whatever. But I definitely think a true family, not only handicapped, but a family bathroom, because so that people can move around. And I ran into that last week with the mom who was trying to finagle and was trying to change her baby out in the open.
I think as long as we
So-
don't try to change the square footage, I think with what's in the building, because you have a press box, for example, on the second floor, but it probably doesn't need all that space. So I think within the footprint, there's flexibility, and I think
Whatever we get
they're-
is gonna beat the porta potties.
Yeah.
Or porta potty.
Let
Gotta see them try to
Lena, I
change
don't
in
know if she
there.
finished her input. Do
Okay.
you have anything else?
I totally agree with Jamie. This
we
building
all
back
agree on
here
that
has
one.
got to go. No doubt about it.
Let's just say I made that point, the point was brought up to the school board, and the school board decided not to move it. I'll leave it at that.
Well, it's their opinion.
Exactly.
I know, and our
We get
opinion is it should be
ours.
moved. and-
It is our
But we are
part.
not the design team,
But
guys.
I'm
it's
saying,
our
message has
part.
been, I hear what
It's
you're
our
saying,
part.
and we will continue to discuss it, but that's not something I want to make the focal point tonight. I got the input, I'm saying, I understand, I agree with you,
Okay.
but that's still a discussion we have to have with the school district. But let me make sure we have all the input, because we haven't heard from the public yet. Anybody else, any input on the revised site plan, the use agreement, or baseball license agreement? Okay, nothing else? Anybody from the public want to talk about the documents? No? Yes. Well, try to keep it brief, because we want to hear from the experts on the turf versus grass, which is, I think, the main attraction, but go ahead, Captain.
For the record, I am still Captain Ed Davidson, Chairman of the IRS 501c3. Can you hear me? Florida Keys Citizens Coalition, and also a 4-year elected member of the school board, lived among them. The school system's conceptual plan for the $6 to $7 million artificial turf upholstered, commercially proportioned complex will significantly expand school system year-round intensified usage and add a dozen additional sports programs that Richie and the good preacher have talked about a number of times, which they never had any entitlement to in the past. They had 2:30 to dark, and by the way, that was amended when they put the lights in. so they could play after dark. No weekends. These provisions are a dramatic intensification of use that was never intended in the last 24 years. Especially as the usage tolerance carrying capacity of the park was used up in the meantime. Meantime, you built all the fire stuff, the sheriff's stuff, other government buildings, and other programs that have come to roost in the park, and used up the carrying capacity in the meantime. It's crucial to remember that the ball field was originally intended, this deal, only to support Coral Shore's program, 13 afternoon games, 19 weeks, all the stuff you just talked about. But Ritchie has repeatedly stated that he no longer refers to it as a ball field, but as a multi-sports facility. There's no entitlement to that. He further refers to those dozen new programs that he intends to host. And Tony has referred to all the sports all the time. That's a quote. This dramatic expanded high-density over-commercialization of our family nature park is the main rationalization for changing from God's green grass into a giant woven plastic rug, because it tolerates high-intensity sustained use better than God's green grass. Well, we don't have to grant them that use. They never had it. And Islamorada taxpayers have no obligation to support it. At the 19 August school board meeting, Operations Director LaFear did not report to the school board any of the 18 August Village Ball Field Advisory Committee input. He didn't report any of it. So much for transparency, which is still lacking. And he, remember, personally witnessed it. He was here. He didn't tell them about it, and the degree of controversy and disapproval. At the school board meeting the next day, John Dick, whom I served with, Vietnam buddy, repeatedly expressed strong concerns that he could not be sure which party was going to pay for how much, most especially when it came time to replace the AstroTurf in the presumed 8 to 10 year useful life. LaFear publicly and adamantly refused to discuss with the school board, his own bosses allegedly, until years from now. We have no real surety about this, and that's a $1 million plus issue. And it has to be done 5 times in the 40 years that Ron is giving them excessively. It should be much shorter. Since the school board, Darren Horan further stated adamantly in the 24 June meeting that the village should contribute $2 million to cover the cost overruns right now. And Chairman Mendy Khan on 19 August also made strong statements, including mentioning a 99-year lease. Most folks would call that a major impasse, not a done deal, Mr. Manager. This is especially so since at the 14 November 23 workshop, Board Mendy Khan asked pointedly on the record, 1 minute 57, 10 seconds if you want to watch it, quote, how much money is the village going to chip in, unquote, and stated further at 1 minute 59, 51 that absent village funding, the school board should demand precedential right to use first and foremost, that's a quote, expanded over 12 months. This has been their true intent to overexploit our family park for years. And by the way, Pat LaFear stated publicly he's been working on this for 5 years. The first real briefing the Islamorada voters had, property owners had, was on the 24th of June of this year. The previous hearing in March in this room was not televised and it wasn't Zoomed, and that was on purpose. Only the people in this room got a briefing then. Based on the expressed majority taxpayer disapproval of many of these issues, the family nature park owners defer a lot more time, and not to be in a hurry, not to vote right away, because they haven't been playing an equal part in this transaction. This is a park commercial exploitation plan binding for the next 40 years. They're not making a 40-year commitment to us. They're not. If the use is to be renegotiated annually, which never happened in the last 24 years, as committee members pointed out, and in light of those existing strong shared funding sentiments on the existing school board, then no majority funding or expanded use limitation compromises can be binding for more than the 4-year terms of the existing school board. It only takes one more vote, and they got 3-2 about us kicking in millions of dollars. And of course, 2-year terms for the Islamorada Council, and indeed the growing public outrage over the multi-year secrecy, lack of transparency, and year-round commercial expansion of this whole process may well empty a few seats on the current village council in 13 months from now. That'll be exciting. Coupled with the fair's adamant refusal at the recent school board meeting to even discuss the 8 to 10 year replacement costs for wear replacement of their artificial turf plastic diamond ball rug, there's no justification whatsoever for approving a lease for longer than 8 years. That useful life facing the reality that the likely multi-million-dollar returfing will have to be redone 5 times in the 40-year. They don't earn a 40-year lease under any circumstances. A many years shorter lease should be redrafted with a dramatic expansion to weekends that have not been permitted for the last 24 years. That's a huge expansion of use, and it just invites holding out-of-town peopled events with traffic and all those other impacts that we don't need. And we don't need the artificial turf to go with it. That's a separate discussion. Those are serious issues. In the actual permit, as village manager and I have discussed in some legal context, $1 million insurance is a joke. You can't break an arm for that hardly anymore. And you're talking about potential injuries, lifelong disabling injuries to young people. That's the most expensive injury lawsuit you could be in. And if they really believe that turf is safer, then they ought to put their money where their mouth is, and we ought to have a release and hold harmless from any personal injury lawsuits that are deemed related to an increase in injuries from artificial turf. If they believe it, then they ought to sign for it. And by the way, this will be information for later. I just had a long conversation with one of the leading national authorities, a PhD lawyer with a national foundation, that the injuries are real and they haven't gone away, and that foundation is going to provide significant documentation for everybody to look over, and that the PFAS has not gone away. It's still there, and she's one of the leading national authorities who ran the California campaign a year and a half ago over exactly these issues. So the public really doesn't have the time to think things over and assimilate. Some of this is going to be the first time anybody's heard the stuff we're going to hear today. So congratulations for doing that. But you're giving away way too much, and we're getting way too little for it in this exploitation, commercial exploitation of a family nature park. And all of the public people involved in this aren't going to be here in a handful of years. I'm going to still be around, but some of the rest of you are going to be on vacation.
Thank you, Captain Ed. A couple points. One is that I can't control what the school board says, but the official public position of the village is we're not kicking in $1. So regardless of what they may say or not say about how much we're making up the difference, whatever, until I hear from my village council, we're not putting up any money. If they're short, they're short. And that's why I recommended removing that second building. But we have not made any promises of any money. Yeah, it's our field, and we're willing to work on that. So there's
Doesn't
been.
mean they won't make any demands, 'cause they already
You make demands every day to me. I don't always say yes. Speaking of that,
Not nearly as often as you should.
speaking of that, I believe this language came from you. licensee shall be solely responsible for the maintenance of the improvements and any necessary removal and replacement of the baseball field.
Yes.
I think that was your actual language. So you're, just to be clear, yeah, I have had the discussion with Pat LaFear, and I have said, we'll get whatever field goes in, grass or turf, the school board is responsible at whatever point in time to replace it and put it in the condition they found it. And so at their expense. So I don't want any miscommunication. That is, from my standpoint, the village's position is that they are 100% responsible for maintenance and replacement. So I just didn't want that out there that that's not being talked about. Anybody else before? I have somebody waiting, so unless anybody got some burning issues on the documents, you really, because we have the professor who wants to talk about grass, but he's not going to be on all night. So if you don't want to hear from him, that's up to you.
I'll be quick, Sue Miller.
Okay.
I want to say that I agree with Jamie that the use verbiage should remain in the license agreement and scrap the use agreement. It seems unnecessary, even if you have to amend the ILA. I like the idea of assuring the people of Alamorada are given ample opportunity to understand the details of this upgrade, and I like the idea of a survey to make sure that everybody understands, and when it comes to who's paying for what, we as taxpayers are paying, whether it's the school board or Alamorada. Thank you.
Frank, do we have Dr. Siobhan on yet?
I am here if you can hear me.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your credentials and what you plan on speaking to tonight?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Marco Schiavon. I am an assistant professor at University of Florida, Fort Lauderdale Research and Education Center. I am the turfgrass professor. Now, when we talk about natural grass, we refer it as turfgrass. When we talk about the non-natural grass, we refer it as artificial or synthetic. So if you hear me talking about turf and not specifying synthetic turf grass, if you hear me talking about turf, that will always be natural grass. How much time do I have to speak?
After listening to Captain Ed, obviously we don't have a lot of time constraints, and so as long as you need.
Okay. Because I could go on for a while on the issue, but let me start with this. I have no skin in the game, meaning I do not represent an industry. I am here only representing the University of Florida and the data and the science behind it. I am here to help the community make an educated decision. That decision will not affect me. I will not get any money back from whatever decision you go with. I will just present data and the science behind it tonight. So can I share my screen, please? Am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and let me see if I, give me 1 second. Sorry, give me just 1 second. Okay, so. All right, you should be able to see a web page at the moment. This is an EDIS publication. For those of you who are not familiar with EDIS, it's basically the extension publication out of the University of Florida. The University of Florida basically has one unified message on artificial and synthetic turfgrass, which is bottom line, synthetic turfgrass cannot be considered Florida-friendly landscaping. Now let's start from the beginning. What is Florida-friendly landscaping? Humans, when they go and try to establish an habitat for themselves, for themselves, they interact with the environment and they modify the environment. Sometimes is for the best, meaning that the conditions they modify, they help human making that environment more livable. Sometimes is not for the best because the environmental impact is too big and it comes back and bites them. Bottom line, what happens, the Florida-friendly landscaping is a series of principles that University of Florida has created in order to have sustainable landscape throughout the state of Florida. This publication is free for the public, and if you want, I can actually copy and paste it in the group chat so everybody can read it. But bottom line, there are 9 principles that makes and establish what is Florida friendly and what is not. The first principle is right plant in the right place, meaning that if we use plant species that are either native or adapted to our environment, those plants will give us back a lot of environmental benefits, that they can be carbon sequestration, they can be temperature, reducing temperature, they can be stop soil erosion, stabilizing the coast, and so on and so forth. Now, unfortunately, synthetic turf grass is not a plant, hence cannot provide any of those ecosystem services. Now, if you read here along the line, it says average surface temperature of natural turfgrass lawn have been reported to be as much as 70 Fahrenheit cooler than a dormant ground lawn and as much as 100 Fahrenheit cooler than synthetic turfgrass surfaces. And that, gentlemen, is not an exaggeration. Now, the main problem we're dealing here at the moment, and the main problem I have speaking to you tonight, is that unfortunately we are dealing with a lack of data from Florida. We have a knowledge gap, so we do know that when you replace turf grass and you replace it with synthetic turf, you lose some of those ecosystem services, and you create some unintended problems. Now, the problem is, we know that happens in other places in the United States. We have a hint that it may also happen in Florida, but we do not have direct data from Florida. Anyway, I will now proceed to show you, give me one sec, a study that we had done in California, which has been published, and that's also free for everybody to read, has been published in Agronomy Journal, which is one of the most important journals for agriculture in the United States, and I will copy and paste that to the chat as well, so everybody can read it if they want to. But bottom line, excuse me, no, I'm sharing the wrong one. Excuse me, here. You should be sharing, you should be seeing a PowerPoint presentation now. So bottom line, before coming to Florida, I was at University of California, Riverside. Long story short, California implemented a program where they would pay homeowners and municipalities to remove turf grass and install other things, including artificial turf grass. What we did during the study is we basically check the landscape temperature of artificial turf grass and natural turf grass towards the city of Riverside. How we did that, we basically flew on top of the city with a small plane. We flew and took aerial images. We took a bunch of aerial images all over the city of Riverside. You can see where we flew and where we took the images right here. We identified houses and stadium with artificial turf grass and with natural turf grass. We use a thermal camera from the plane and from the bottom, and we have actually measured it for calibration on the ground, and here where we start seeing the problem. University of California, Riverside. This is a soccer stadium where the benches were natural turf grass, where the field was changed and they installed artificial turf grass. This is only for calibration, and let me tell you, also the natural turf grass was also not the species I would recommend for California Riverside. But anyway, what we would see next to each other, at least 50 degrees temperature. Then when we went out and averages all those stadium and all those houses, basically what we saw is that, I'm sorry this is in Celsius, but unfortunately when we need to report to scientific community, we need to use metric, but I'll translate it to Fahrenheit. What we saw is that basically natural turf grass during the summer resembled the same temperature as air temperature. So here we're talking 40 Celsius, which is more or less 100 Fahrenheit, while the artificial turf grass was basically twice as much. Okay, we are talking around 180 to 200 Fahrenheit land temperature. And here you can start seeing the effects that artificial turf grass has. This is the reflectance, and so this is the image we took from the sky, and on the right you see the reflectance of that image that basically then you translate into temperature. And here what we talk about. Keep in mind, Riverside, California is basically right before Coachella Desert, so we're almost in the desert. Artificial turf grass is pure white, means we are talking a field that at this point is hotter than the desert landscape right here, okay? So the desert landscape with no vegetation is actually cooler than the artificial turf. Right next to it, practice field of natural turf, and the difference is striking. As a matter of fact, this one is one of my favorite images. This is Riverside Community College. Majority of schools in California have a football field that is in artificial turf grass, made of artificial turf grass, basically because what happens is that traffic, if they don't have a practice field, there's a lot of traffic, and in the middle of the desert, you just require too much water to keep turf grass alive for football or soccer. Hence, in order to increase the usage, they use artificial turf grass, and so you have a football field of artificial turf grass, baseball field right next to it that doesn't see nearly the same amount of traffic. They always have natural grass. Here is the scale of the land surface temperature. Riverside Community College, football field 210 Fahrenheit. To give you a reference, I hope you can see my mouse. This one right here is the parking lot. The parking lot is 30 Fahrenheit cooler than the artificial turf grass field. And I'm not even telling you about the baseball field, because the baseball field is 130 degrees cooler than the artificial turf. And then at that point, here is what happens. We saw some outliers, meaning that some schools had really big differences and some schools have really little differences. And we went, and one of those schools was actually, as I showed you, was actually University of California, Riverside, the soccer pitch. So we went to the soccer the soccer coach, and we asked, how come we don't see as many differences between your soccer field and the bench and where the bench are. And the answer was we actually need to water the artificial turf in order to let athletes play at the beginning of the season. So when they come and when they start training, they cannot play on artificial turf unless that artificial turf is actually irrigated. And check this out because this is super funny, and this is University of California, Riverside. Again, baseball field, natural grass. We are talking 100 or more Fahrenheit cooler than the middle of the soccer pitch. Now, why is the middle of the soccer pitch hotter than the sides? Because of irrigation system fault. So basically what's going on is that they replace natural turf grass with artificial turf. They still have to water that pitch in order to make it playable with less water, for sure. I'm not saying with the same amount of water. They for sure use less amount of water to make it cooler, but they still need to water. At that point, they're not watering a plant, they're watering some fabric. And if the irrigation system is not uniform, what happens is that you have different patterns of cooling that pitch. So just like natural turf grass, if your irrigation system is faulty, you may have patches where you play better than others. And what the gentleman said before, that comes March and April and you're really struggling with natural grass, I absolutely understand and agree with what is said. Watering is more of an art here in Florida than a precise science. But let me tell you, then if you need to use that pitch during the day and you're dealing with a faulty irrigation system, you're going to have exactly the same problem as natural grass. Now, these data are coming from California. We're in Florida, and specifically we are in South Florida. Do I see or believe we'll see the same magnitude here compared to California? No. Probably the difference between natural and artificial here in Florida would be reduced because we are a high precipitation state. And during the summer and right now, days are cloudy, hence the artificial will probably not warm up as much as during the dry season. However, I want to point out that at least here in Fort Lauderdale, we just had a brutally dry beginning of the summer. And so during those type of days, if it doesn't rain much, then yes, the differences may be the same as artificial as California. Now, please let's go back to the previous article. Right plant, right place. We described it. Water efficiently. We just said it. If you are in a situation where you actually have to water artificial turf grass because it's not raining, it's just too hot, and you need to use that pitch during the day, then at that point you're watering something that is not providing you any ecosystem service. Okay, fertilize appropriately. Okay, synthetic turf eliminates the need of fertilizer, so that's better for sure. Attract wildlife. Now, a lot of people don't realize, but any kind of pitch actually can harbor wildlife, being them birds or insects or whatever. If you replace sports natural turf grass with artificial turf does not harbor any wildlife. And here is even a bigger problem. So try to follow me here because this concept is a little bit more complicated, but there is a huge talk about soil health at the moment. What is soil health? Basically, soil is a really complex matrix that harbors not only animals and bugs, but a lot of microbes and fungi. That usually is called a microbiome. What is a microbiome? Is basically the amount of microorganisms that you find in a soil. People tend to believe that bacteria and fungi are bad, but think about your intestine, as a matter of fact. Your digestive system has a microbiome. You, within your body, has bacteria and whatnot that help you digest the food you eat. With soil and plants is exactly the same thing. There are a lot of bacteria and fungi that actually are not antagonistic to plants, they're not pathogenic to plants, but they actually help plants being healthier. And in the Keys even more. The Everglades have such a complex microbiome that means they have a lot of microorganisms that are functional to that specific environment. Now, if we put a tarp, if we put a layer that warms up so much the soil underneath it, what are we doing to that soil? And the truth is, we do not know it yet, but if we get to see the same amount of, the same temperature that we see out west here in the Keys, then that means are we cooking that soil or are we sterilizing that soil? And if we are sterilizing it for real, then how long will it take for that soil to actually be again healthy once your pitch is going to be removed? That is a research question that we have no answers yet, okay? But it's a big if. It's a big if and it's a big risk. So, other point, manage yard pest responsibly. Generally speaking, you are going to have less weeds with artificial turf grass, for sure. But that doesn't mean that all artificial turf grass is not going to have weeds. We have anecdotal information that nutsedge and other species can actually germinate even within artificial turf grass. And then at that point, how do you take care of it? Because if you need to spray it, then at that point you have an impermeable layer that is going to keep the pesticide right there. And that's going to be a problem. Same thing with recycle. Well, recycle our waste, we don't really care in sport settings, but here is where the thing gets really problematic, especially for the Keys. Reduce stormwater runoff. And this is a big point for the state of Florida. So basically, we do have a lot of environmental and scientific data, published data, that bottom line tells you that natural turf grass functions as a filter between your soil and your water underneath, your water table, okay? Artificial turf grass picks up pretty much, here in Florida, picks up. If you water correctly and if you fertilize correctly, natural turf grass is going to pick up any kind of nutrient you throw at it, okay? Because it has a really intricate and complex root system that basically traps whatever is flowing through it. Now think about this. When it rains and it pours, where do you see water running off first? Cement, and where there's no dirt, where there's no plant, okay? On artificial synthetic surfaces. And it's the same thing with artificial turf grass. Artificial turf grass does not have the same ability to capture stormwater as a regular pitch, a regular natural turf grass pitch. But here is where the problems start arising. So check it out. It's in point A. In addition to runoff volume, Synthetic turf grass runoff has been shown to contain zinc in concentration that pose a potential risk to surface water and aquatic organisms. Study done in Connecticut. We do not have data from Florida yet. I am working on filling the gap, but if the same thing that happened up in the East Coast will happen in such a fragile ecosystem as the Keys, then we're going to have problem because, let's say, the artificial turf starts being breaking up by usage and by age. So you start getting some microplastic released. Then a storm comes and hits, and you guys are right next on the water. You are right next on the Everglades on one side and the ocean on one side. Where do the microplastic goes? Marine wildlife. Marine wildlife eats it, you go, you fish it, and you eat the microplastic as a circle, all right? Now, this scenario that I just described you, is it proven here in Florida? No, it's not, but it's a plausible scenario. It may happen in the long run, okay? And bottom line, all it is, it's to protect the waterfront. So anytime you guys take out a plant that it's adapted to your environment and substitute it with something that does not provide you with the same ecosystem service, then bottom line, you start creating environmental issues. Now, one more thing, two more things actually. Do you see this other article, please? Yes or no, or are you still in the same? Are you still in the same page? Are you still in the EDIS publication?
Yeah.
You see lower extremity injuries. Okay, perfect. All right. I hate to contradict Captain Ed. I think he had a lot of merit in what he said, but there was technically one minor detail that was wrong. So this article basically just came out, and this is scientific evidence again. NFL basically analyzed the amount and severity of injury of their athletes in natural turf grass versus artificial. The amount of injury, and let me show you, it's right here, results, okay? So, the incidence rate of lower extremity injury was 1.2 per game for natural turf and 1.42 injuries per game for artificial turf. So the amount of injuries is comparable. However, and this is the problem, the odds of a season-ending surgery were found to be significantly higher on artificial turf compared with natural grass. Okay? So the amount of injury per se is the same, it's the severity of the injury that artificial turf grass creates on NFL athletes to be significantly higher, okay? So basically the conclusion, 2021 and 2022 NFL seasons, our analysis demonstrated a higher incidence rate of injuries on artificial turf grass surface with natural turf grass surface, okay? In addition, the odds of injury requiring season-ending surgery were found to be significantly higher on artificial turf comparing with natural grass. Again, this is scientific evidence. If somebody has different data, then they should bring it to the scientific community, and that can be discussed. Let me wrap up everything I said. Will artificial turf grass require less input than natural turf grass to keep the green surface functional? Yes, it will. It will require less water. It will require less fertilizer in order to provide the surface with higher usage. However, there are huge environmental costs that are not taken into consideration in these economical analysis. At the end of the day, environmental cost, everybody pays for it. If you end up having to clean your nearby water bodies, that's going to cost way more than the money you saved to install the artificial turf grass. Okay? Those things may or may not happen, but if they may happen, it can lead to disaster. And that's basically, bottom line, what you will have to think about. You may not be the one that need to pay for the cleanup, but the kids that are actually going to play on that turf may be the one that will have to clean up the mess. That's all I had to say. Once again, I have no skin in this game. I will have no economical benefits, whatever the decision you guys make.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Let me see if you have a few more minutes, if any task force member has any questions, because the purpose of the meeting is to get information. I know it's a very extensive presentation. Do any of the task force have any questions for the doctor? Tony, Jamie?
I thank you so much for taking the time to put that together. I think it was extremely informative. I appreciate you doing that. I guess my only question would be cost. How much do you have? Is there a plan? Is there a way to put something together to find out how much water, the difference between what the amount of water versus turf versus grass, that affects our utility bills. And I think everything else, I'm with you on the natural grass. So that would be the only thing, because I know that's come up as the expense of.
So now that will depend a lot on the usage you want to have, because if you are using it only for baseball after sunset, then at that point you probably won't really need to even cool it down. But if it's true that you actually want to increase and expand usage to have people come and play more sports, then you may run the risk to having to water it. And so, first of all, you need to decide what the usage is going to be, and how much usage, and so on and so forth. And then you will need to do a cost analysis, yes.
And one other question I did have, the life cycle of
Yes.
turf versus natural grass versus synthetic turf. If a natural grass field is maintained appropriately, is there a life term or a life cycle for replacement of that?
Yeah. There is, and that once again depends on the usage. Generally speaking, an artificial field would last longer, would have higher lifespan with the same amount of usage. Okay, with the same amount of usage, an artificial turf will have a longer lifespan than natural turf. But if you do not play a lot of games on that grass, I would say you can go 7 to 10 years with natural turf if managed correctly.
Thank you.
Captain Black?
Just a question I had. You had a scientific paper showing injuries related to sports, NFL playing on there. Was there any other scientific data from other sports playing on AstroTurf, whether baseball or lacrosse or soccer or anything else, other than just that specific study? Okay,
so there are reports, but bottom line, I prefer to give you scientific evidence because basically that the scientific method works that when you have the data and when you have the proof, you bring it to the scientific community. They check if the study was done correctly, and so basically they validate your methodology. So in terms of papers, that is the number one.
Okay, so no
because
other
NFL
peer.
had invested a lot in their research lately. You probably can find other reports, but they will not have the same validity as that paper. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so no other peer-reviewed papers as far as.
Right.
Okay.
Alina?
No, thank you so much for all your time and effort that you put into this presentation. We really appreciate it. I think it was very important to point out the difference between the science and anecdotal evidence. So thank you for bringing that out.
Let me, I will put in the chat all the papers I quoted for this presentation. Let me put it in the chat. They are all open to the public. We made them open access so the public can read them and so you can distribute them among the community if you feel the need to.
Tony, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate your comments, particularly about the environmental side of that and concerns that we need to have. I would concur. I have noticed that all the research involves contact sports and very little data out there available for baseball. And in our particular case, we're talking about isolating this particularly to a baseball field and baseball facility. So I would continue to encourage people to try to find that data that's out there and for you to continue that research. And just thank you for the work that's been done. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. You're absolutely right on that.
Any quick questions from the public?
Could we have his email if we have questions?
Yes, Doctor, can you give us once again your name and your email and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Marco Schiavon. My email is literally my last name, my whole name, Marco Schiavon @ufl.edu. If you Google me, I'll come up as member of the Fort Lauderdale Research and Education Center.
And I have all this information, so if anybody needs it, they can contact me tomorrow. Once again, thank you, Doctor, for appearing, and we appreciate your input.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
I wanted to make one comment too, just about this. I've asked about the peer-reviewed papers. It is going to be a multi-use field. So that's something that we have to keep in our minds. It is not just a baseball field. It is a multi-use field. So just something to reiterate for our whole group here.
Exactly.
All right, so obviously the doctor was presenting one side of the story. Now we're going to hear from the other side. Mr. Allen. Wes Allen is with AstroTurf. There actually is a company still called AstroTurf. I didn't realize that. The reason why I wanted to appear was that the City of Key West has recently redone the ball field at Bayview Park, which I'm very familiar with. I grew up right down the street from there. And I've been watching the process, and they recently completed the field. So there's an artificial turf field completed by Mr. Allen's company in Key West. I thought it'd be relevant. And what should be clear, the village isn't selecting a vendor. Assuming, let's say it is turf, that is a decision made by the school board. We are not having any input as far as, if they do pick a vendor for turf, who that will be. So we're not trying to influence their selection, but I thought that Mr. Allen, who offered to come, will at least give his side of the presentation and answer questions, and particularly the questions. I've been getting a lot of questions about synthetic turf, and I thought, rather than going online, wherever, let's hear from somebody who's actually done a field in the Keys in Key West. So, Mr. Allen, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and give us your presentation.
So, excuse me, I'm Wes Allen. I'm the regional sales manager here in the state of Florida for AstroTurf, the inventor of artificial turf. And we have and I'm going to talk a little bit about AstroTurf, and then we'll get into as a company, and then we'll get into some questions and some stuff that I've brought with me to talk about. AstroTurf, as you all know, Houston Astrodome, first turf field in America, and all those things. We've changed tremendously over the since 1965. Okay, and I always equate it to this. Your iPhone, your Samsung, whatever's in your pocket is not the same cell phone you had 15 years ago. It does different things. I won't talk about other turf companies other than to tell you this. What I see in our industry is other turf companies haven't evolved. Okay? One of the big things AstroTurf hangs its hat on is green turf systems. We were the first company to invent a non-infill system. What does that mean? That means it's just fiber without rubber in it, because we recognized there was an issue to the public with rubber in your field. So we wanted to provide a solution. We're the only turf company currently to date that has a USDA product that I'm going to show you tonight that is environmentally friendly, that is recyclable. That is a huge thing coming up in the turf industry right now. The turf industry starts in Europe, and whatever that trend is, makes it to California somehow, then goes to the Northeast, and then works its way south. So what we're starting to see in our industry is people want greener turf, more environmentally friendly turf, safer turf, and recyclable turf, because recycling is coming. I was a teacher for 20 years. My first year teaching in 2003 at Oviedo High School, we didn't have a recycling bin probably in the school. When I left, there was a recycling bin in every single room, multiple around campus. So AstroTurf has changed over the years to help meet that need for these turf fields to be recycled, to be reused, for that carbon footprint to be eliminated. How this began with AstroTurf is we are the turf provider for the Olympics. And in Paris, they wanted a carbon zero turf. So we had to come up with a way to make a carbon zero turf, and we did. So I'm going to grab a sample of that real quick, and I'm going to pass it around. There's two samples that are going to come around, and I'll explain why the GTB product is more environmentally friendly and is a more recyclable turf, so that you can get your hands on it and kind of feel it and understand. Because everything said here tonight is not wrong. No one has said anything wrong. It's a new technology that we're able to provide that I hope puts some people at ease when it comes to artificial turf. I'm just like the professor. I have zero skin in this game. I may not, if it is turf, I may not even be the vendor. But what I want to do is give you guys in the village of Islamorada the information that is needed so that we don't think about turf from 20 years ago. We think about turf in 2025, and more importantly, we think about the turf system that you're going to have, you could possibly have out there in 2035 and 2040, because that's when, and Captain, I believe you'll be here. But most of us are going to be gone. After hearing you talk, you'll be here if you want to be. I got a feeling, man. I wouldn't question that. But I'm going to pass around these two samples real quick. Okay. This sample, AstroTurf Root Zone 3D3 52. Okay. This is our typical turf. The GTB sample that's going to be passed around with it. You'll notice the big difference is the color on the back. I'll explain that. And the color of the brown fibers, and I'll explain that for you. Okay, so these two are coming around, fill them, you can tell the difference in the two, but please understand that those two products, while the makeup of the fibers in the turf are the same, the environmental aspects are completely different. What makes turf non-recyclable right now? Well, there's one way to recycle artificial turf, straight, boom, let's go recycle it. That's chemical recycling. It's very expensive. I'm telling you, the state of Florida, in 10, 15 years, you're going to have to recycle your turf. So you've got to come up with a way to do that, right? So what we've done is made the part that's hard to recycle is the backing. The backing is made of polyurethane, okay? So what we've been able to do is switch our backing from a polyurethane backing. We now use a soybean-based backing. Okay, so 0 carbon footprint on that. Our thatch that you see in there, which is important, remember this word thatch, that our root zone, that's what's holding the infill. Some fields have rubber, some fields have a natural infill. I will suggest to you guys a natural infill in just a second. That's what holds that in place, so it doesn't blow away, it doesn't get in your waters. Okay, I live in Sarasota, Florida, actually in Nokomis Beach. Water is a huge part of my family. My friends are captains. We go on the water all the time. Okay, so when I tell you these things, it's coming straight from somebody who lives this similar life to you do. The thatch, the root zone that you see in there, the brown one, instead of it being a plastic root zone, it is now a sugarcane root zone. So it's made from sugarcane. So that turf, that GTB, is the only USDA approved turf product in the country because it's bio-based 11% or more. So when we talk about recycling, that turf is recyclable. PFAS came up earlier, big word right now. In our manufacturing, when our turf is made, there is 0 detectable PFAS in that turf. There is more PFAS in your chair, there is more PFAS in that dirt than there is in a turf field. I don't think that's disputable. I think if we went out and took samples, everybody would see it, that that is the truth, okay? You can't just talk about turf, you have to talk about a turf system. 10 years ago, turf fields, plastic material, sand and rubber infill. Not the best solution. How do we make fields safer? How do we make fields cooler? Big deal in Florida. How do we make fields more sustainable? So a company named Brock USA made a pad. They started making pads. They made pads for hospitals. And they said, let's make turf fields safer. So they developed a pad that goes underneath the turf. Okay, well, what's this do underneath the turf for me? The old way of measuring turf safety was called a GMAX test. And a GMAX test, they take a flat piece of metal, and it's got all kinds of sensors in it that I don't understand, and they drop it from about 3 feet, and it measures how much shock would go into an athlete versus going into the turf field. And that number that the Synthetic Turf Council came up with should be under 200. Anything over 200 is unsafe. So Brock said, let's put a pad underneath it. We put this pad underneath it, your GMAX is going to be somewhere between 90 and 110 for the life of that field. Your grass field is somewhere between 90 to 100, somewhere in there. So it's going to be very comparable as far as body contact to that field as a natural grass field would be if you put a pad underneath it. Pad's 100% recyclable, by the way. 100% recyclable.
I'm sorry, could you say that?
The pad is 100% recyclable. The Brock drainage pad, YSR, is 100% recyclable. And it's a 25-year warranty, so over the lifespan of your turf, you're not having to replace it as often as you replace your turf. Your pad sits there. So how do we make it cooler? Let's take the rubber out of it. Okay, so people went through these different rubber or different infills. They put cork in. Cork floats away. You go fishing, use cork bobber, right? Boom, cork floats. When it's going to rain, cork's going to leave. All right, let's use coconut husk. It's going to be cooler. We go through a dry spell. It's going to dry up. It's going to blow away. Okay, so what can we use? So Brock came up with Brockfill. It's a yellow pine. It's ground up. It's baked. It is rounded so it doesn't splinter, and all the organics are out of it. We have the 4 baseball fields at Clayton Sterling Park when you get into the Keys. We have the Naval Base 2 fields at the Keys. We have Truman Waterfront. We have George Myra, and we just finished Bayview Park. All of them are Brock Pad and Brock Fill. Okay, they chose it because it's environmentally friendly, and it's going to be cooler for their kids to play on. It's going to be safer for their kids. Yes, ma'am. Brock, B-R-O-C-K, Brock Pad. So when we talk about a turf system, the safest, most environmentally friendly turf system you can have, and again, I got no skin in this. I don't know if we're doing it or not with doing turf, and if I'll even be a vendor. But I urge you, make it be a USDA product. Make it be a recyclable product. Make it be a recyclable infill, and make it be a recyclable pad, without a doubt. Those are the things that I urge you. We've heard everybody talk about the issues with turf, Those are the things from a turf professional. If you end up choosing a turf field, I would strongly suggest that that's what you do. I want to hit on a couple of things that Professor said. And Professor's extremely smart, and he's got a lot of data its point is spot on. I'm not going to argue it. I do find it ironic that the University of Florida has, I think, 6 turf fields I counted the other day, including the President's Lawn and their entertainment lawn. We did those. So, you know, if it's that terrible, let's make sure we're not putting it there. But we talked about heat, we talked about PFAS. Oh, water. Okay, getting water into your system.
When you talk about heat,
Yes, sir.
South Carolina, North Carolina,
What?
they use
Larry,
white
let me stop for a second. Number one, people are watching at home, they can't hear anybody in the audience. Unless you're on the microphone. So let him finish his presentation, he'll answer questions, but if you talk from the audience, they can't hear you at home. I want to make sure they hear your questions. So let Wes finish his presentation, and then we'll have questions from the task force and the audience. But if you speak out there, like when Cheryl's talking, I don't think people at home can hear what you're saying. So please let him finish, and then we'll have the question and answer, okay?
So we talked, the professor spoke about, and we spoke about water quality. Big deal in the Keys, obviously, all over Florida, all over the country. We talked about runoff from the turf field, okay? Water goes vertically through the turf. So let's think about this. You've got this turf, okay? On the bottom of this turf, against that black, is going to be 3 pounds of sand. There's going to be a pound, if you chose this system, there's going to be a pound of Brock fill. So when it rains, that water vertically drains. Turf fields are designed to vertical drain, not sheet flow drain. So it's going to go through all that infill. Then it's going to go through this backing. Underneath this turf is going to be a minimum of 6 inches of stone. 1 inch of 89s on top that are compacted for planarity. So that water's going to have to go through that filter system. It's going to have to go through 6 inches or 5 to 6 inches of 57 stone below it before it ever hits the ground. So it's going to filter vertically, not horizontally. And the point of that is, we mentioned of microplastics, sheet flowing and getting into the water. Could it happen? I'm not going to sit here and tell you it can't. But I'm also going to question you how many boats are on the water that have plastic covers on their engine. I'm also going to ask you to think about how many plastic canopies, how much plastic is around our water, and as plastic ages, does it break down? Absolutely it does. So is there a better way to have a turf system? That's what I'm here to explain to you. 100% there is, than what you know from the past. Should you do a turf or a grass field? I got no dog in that fight. I'm going to go back to Nokomis, and I'm going to stay there and let y'all figure this out on turf and grass. But there is a better way. Life expectancy of a turf field. Industry standards, 8 years on a warranty. Okay, a baseball field, in my experience, lasts a lot longer than, say, your regular football field or a soccer field, lacrosse field, multi-sport type field. I know, I heard mention, I don't know how you're going to use your field. Heard mention there's going to be a multi-sport field possibly in the outfield. That's great, because we've all watched baseball. And a lot of times, if I'm playing right field, I may never move the whole game. Okay? I played baseball, I played football, Doc's right, Professor's right. There's more injuries in football overall than there is baseball. Baseball is a straight-ahead sport. Football is a collision sport. So are there more injuries on turf fields that are catastrophic, longer lasting? Absolutely. I would say if you average those two out on natural versus the injuries they studied that were I don't know if you used the word catastrophic, major injuries, that number will be very close because of this type of sport that we play. Baseball, again, straight ahead sport, no quick reaction, yes, but not running and react. So there's a difference there in that. Baseball fields, we're seeing them last 10, 12, maintained correctly, and there is maintenance with an artificial turf field. You do have to groom the field. You have to, baseball fields, you got to watch your hot spots just like you would a natural field. You do see in baseball natural fields a lip develop, and those bad hops coming off that lip is where you see injuries. It happens. On a turf field, you don't have that lip. You don't have that bad hop. We were lucky enough in the beginning of this year to be selected by Major League Baseball to be the official turf of Major League Baseball. A lot of that is because, or all of that is because the studies that we've done to make our turf system play as much like a natural grass field as possible. Because we can talk about all the safety and what's better, turf or grass for the environment or whatever. The bottom line is, if you do turf, you want it to play like a natural field because you want your kids who are using that field to enjoy it and to be able to participate on it the same they would if it was a grass field. So our studies have shown, and the way that we've developed our turf, that it plays as close to natural grass as possible. It's, in my opinion, not having a lip in front of me at shortstop, I feel safer than I do if it's going to hit that lip and take a bat hop, okay? To end all this, and I'll answer questions if that's okay, to end all this on my side of things, again, I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want you to know that there is a better turf system than the one that you've read about or the one that you've heard about or the things that are going on, okay? AstroTurf, we always talk about we're chasing grass. Well, we're chasing grass for playability, but also we're chasing grass for safety, for our environment, and for the recyclability of turf.
Thank you, Wes.
Yes, sir.
We'll go ahead and get some questions. We have a microphone, and our first question will come from our vice mayor.
No, I'm going to give it to Larry.
You're just the conduit.
I'm going to be your van.
You're just a public servant, okay? Larry, go ahead and ask your question. I want to be able to have the people at home hear what you said.
Ron, thank you. My name's Larry Zetwalk, and I'm specifically glad that you've brought the synthetic turf standard up. But my question is, on your, did you do any of the turf fields in Key West?
Did them all except for one, yes, sir.
Okay. My question is on drainage. Mm-hmm. All right. They flooded last week or the week before last.
Key West did?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they canceled games. Now, I understand we get 2, 3, yesterday, which wasn't supposed to rain, we got 3 inches of rain in certain parts. Where does that water go? And how fast does it go?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. So that is determined by an engineer, and the engineer designs the fields, right? So just like a building, they would design a building for wind load. They design a turf field for the drainage capacity of it, for water storage, and water quality has been a big thing now with South Florida water management. Depending on the system that they design, that could be a self-contained system. So a self-contained system, you still have that depth of rock I spoke about, but you have a collector pipe that goes around your field. So if you have a rectangle field, well, let's talk about a baseball field. So you're going to have the arc of the baseball field, and up the sidelines, you'll have a collector pipe. So in a contained system, that trench that pipe sits in, which is full of rock, is bigger. So it eventually vertically drains down into the water table at that point. Or you could have a collector system that outfalls into a stormwater management facility. I don't know if you have one here. I don't know how they would design that. But typically, and I know the Keys are an anomaly, that water vertically drains down, hits those collector pipes, and then exits to a water facility, a water management facility that's either on site or is a city maintained facility that then, it pipes into there and then it runs to wherever that facility is. To answer your question about how fast it drains, without infill, this turf drains 40 inches a minute. With Brock fill and sand in it, it'll drain upwards of 30 inches a minute. The pad that I would suggest for you guys, and I would strongly, again, suggest a pad for you guys, is a drainage pad. You see these lines in it, these channels that are in there. It's also perforated, so it drains vertically and it helps the water get to the collector pipes. If the field was drained, if the field flooded, and I'm assuming the field flooded when you said that, or the whole town, or the whole island flooded.
Well, yeah, the whole island.
Yeah. So King Tide, my assumption, and I probably shouldn't do that, would be that there was nowhere for the water to go. So if that happens, you're not playing a game, whether it's natural or synthetic, right? Like there's nowhere for the water to go. You're not on the field. So I hope I answered your question of how it drains and where it goes.
The other main question was compressibility. I see water cannons in all the literature that I take a look at used to cool it down, because when we shoot synthetic turf around here, it comes in at 165 degrees. And so the answer in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia is they use water. And the cost of that water is in the numbers I have here is $8,000 to $10,000 a year just in keeping the field. But does that make the compressibility of the turf, when you replace air with water, does it get harder?
So what I can tell you is we're going to do 40 fields this year in the state of Florida. None of them have a water cannon. I grew up in North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. I've never seen a field with I'm not disagreeing with you, but I've never seen a field with a water cannon. I know I made a mistake one time as a high school football coach. My first year I had a turf field. We had sand and rubber field, and I felt like it was a little warm for my boys. So I instructed my coaches to go out and water that thing down. It was the biggest mistake I ever made because it was a sauna in about 15 minutes, and I went back inside because I'm kind of fat and don't want to stand in the sauna. So, I hope I answer your question. I don't know a field in the state of Florida that has a water cannon. The only reason I could think to water a field is if you had an infill that had to stay wet in order for it not to blow away. And that may be what it is. Is that what it is?
And we've got two people up here on the stands that have had customers put synthetic turf in their backyards, and the dogs wouldn't go out there. They had to pull it out. And I have friends who put it out there. They can't get out of their boat because it's so hot until they put their shoes on.
So keep in mind, too, and that was something that I saw the professor put up, and he's right. We're not talking about landscape turf. We're talking about a sports field turf. So on a landscape turf, you typically either have no infill or you have a coated sand infill. And that coated sand is green, and it's going to heat up just like your plastic. If I put this out in the sun, is it going to be hotter than your grass? Absolutely. If I put rubber in it, it's going to be a lot hotter than your grass. If I put Brockfill in it, it's going to lower it down when it's not wet, about 20 degrees from its peak temperature, and when it is wet, it's going to be about 30 degrees. So could you put a water cannon in? Absolutely. A lot of our fields in California do have it's like a big tank that goes down the field to water it, but it's the infill that they use, they need to keep wet in California, and because it's so dry in those areas where it's at. So will it cool it down? Yes, but keep in mind when you think about turf, your landscape turf is a completely different application than your sports field turf.
Anybody else?
Thank you. I was going to note, because Larry brought it up about the field not being playable in Key West. Nothing was playable in Key West because of the tides. But earlier in the year, Tommy Roberts was unplayable because it's grass and it was flooding. And I know there's points of contention about the grass flooding and so forth, but they had to move the game to the backyard. Ron, I think you can speak to that, which is artificial turf. And there's all kinds of supposition about the grass field and so forth, but frankly, nobody knows all the details, and everybody's it's purely speculating. So they've been throwing people under the bus left and right, but folks don't know all the details.
Hi, how are you doing?
Thank you.
I measured turf in a house, synthetic landscaping, and it was 165. It probably has rubber backing, who knows? Question is, your turf or the one you're representing, what would that be if it was comparative, 130?
If you had the rubber in it, it would be up. If you had the rubber infill,
the one you're talking about,
the
like
one that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
if you went with Brockfill,
Yeah.
and the Brockfill's dry, not wet,
Right.
Your natural grass field is going to be somewhere between 94 to 100 degrees, depending on the time of the day and how intense the sun's been for that day.
Right.
Okay. So with the Brockfill in it, not wet, you're probably going to be somewhere around 115 to 120 at the most, at the peak. And if it is wet, you're going to get that number down another 10 degrees, so you're going to be comparable to the grass. Will it ever be as cool as a natural grass field? I hope one day we can figure that out. But for right now, we can't get it to that natural grass field is the truth on the temperature.
That's a big difference with 165.
Yes, sir. So the rubber field, if you said, hey, we're going to do rubber in our field out here, you're going to see the temperature between at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when that sun's beat on it all morning, all day in the heat of the day, you're going to see it could climb upwards of 150, 160. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm Chris Engel, so father, mother up there. Just a quick question about, of course, this sounds like a much better product that you're telling us about. What is the cost difference from the typical artificial grass that we see down here? So I conduct home inspections for the last 15 years from Ocean Reef to Key West, so I see it all the time. Again, I like it in certain areas, you know, it's a great alternative. But exactly what you're explaining, this sounds like a much better product than what we're seeing in our backyards, and especially with runoff like they're talking about. So what's the difference in cost for a product like yours that you're talking about? Like, this would be the much more preferable product, of course, for our field here, if this is where we go.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is, and I had this question earlier today, and I hate to put a number on it because I don't know what the under drainage system would be, right? But
Well,
what I can tell
square
you,
footage, just like
yeah, what I would tell you is, when you go to a pad and you go to a Brock infill, you're going to increase per square foot by about $2.75 to $3. Okay, now what does that mean? That means you're paying really a lot of it in this pad that's a 25-year pad. Okay, I don't represent Brock. I don't work for Brock. I don't make any money off of Brock. But I have done this long enough that I am a believer, if you're looking for the safest field for your kids, that this is the safest combination. So, yeah, $2.75 to $3 more. So you're probably looking, you know, turf and install without talking about, you know, the actual drainage system. You're somewhere, let's call it $7.50 to $8 a square foot before you do the drainage, and don't hold me to those numbers. I know this is recorded.
No,
but
no,
do not hold me to those
that.
numbers. I cannot be held to that.
Of course, we're just thinking, of course, you know,
Right.
when the field's going to be built, and if this is the product to go with, obviously we want the best for our park. And this sounds like, if we're going to go with turf, this is the way that we're going to want to go, instead of what we have currently in our backyards at 165 degrees.
Right.
Also something for us to recommend for other clients that we may have down here, friends and family.
This is
You
why
got a
Key
question?
West chose
Oh, you can
Brockville
ask.
is
I got another question,
the heat.
but-
Sorry.
So my last question. So I know, give it back to you. I was just thinking about footwear, because of course now, typically with baseball, we're all wearing cleats, and with your product that you're showing us here, obviously, are they going to have a different kind of footwear, like the metal cleats
Same
digging
cleats.
in?
Same cleats.
Oh, okay.
Same cleats. So what we provide with our turf systems for baseball is and this is getting more into the technical baseball side of it, but we provide panels for our pitcher's landing area, for the pitcher's mound, and for the batter's box and the catcher area that are able to call it hook and loop. You can figure out we just can't call it that. But you just pull those out when they're worn out, and the trick is turn it when you're when you're at the batter's box. Right goes to left and turn it. Left goes to right, you know. But you can replace those. So the cleats don't need to change. We don't ever want, it would be awful if this happens for Coral Shores to call Key West High School and go, hey, you got to play in your tennis shoes today. Well, they're not used to playing tennis shoes. So we don't restrict that, no.
Question for you, since it will be, regardless of whether you want it to be or not, if we have a hurricane down here, and for every other event that we have in the park, starting with the Nautical Flea Market, that field gets driven on. How does this do with being driven on?
So driven on will not hurt the turf, but driven on and turning abruptly can damage the drainage underneath it.
I know, that's what
You would have a better, it'll be a little safer with the thick pad underneath that to help with that. But I would strongly encourage you not to drive, obviously if there's an emergency situation, turf's the last thing you're worried about, right? Let's fix the situation. But if we're driving on and off, driving straight on and off is what we recommend. Or if you have to turn, do a big turn. If you're having to work on, say, the lights, put plywood down and go over it. So just for example, this turf is what's in Camping World Stadium, this exact system. So they'll hold Monster Jam Saturday and Sunday. They'll tear all that out. We'll come in and regroom the field, and it's fine. But they put plywood and decking down to host that. Concerts, plywood and decking to host it. Does not hurt it.
Post-hurricane, I'm not going to find a piece of spare plywood anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
Cheryl, our policy right now is to keep vehicles off that field. It has been. So, we keep the big gate locked, and I assume that would continue into the future to keep large vehicles. Because same thing, our irrigation system would get wiped out, and the ruts and divots that we'd put in the outfield would be disastrous to our kids in that.
Just think it through what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wes, you mentioned that you've been doing some Key West fields. Recently, I've seen the Bayview Park one. You just finished it. And it seems to be comparable to our Founders Park field. So getting back to the question on cost, because it's public record, I guess, it's the city of Key West, not the school board, it's the city. What was the total cost of just the ball field?
If I remember off the top of my head without not going back and looking at it, I want to say it was like 980 something, 980,000 for that field. That's including the drainage, that's including the Brock pad, Brock fill, the whole thing.
And what kind of field, since it's in Key West, anybody here that wants to go down and look at it, I've actually gone on the field, it's finished. What kind of subsurface, is that what you did on the Key West field, what
Yes,
you're
sir.
talking about? So the field in Key West at Bayview Park specifically has everything that you're talking about?
It does not have the GTB products. It doesn't have this product. They had already started using our Root Zone product, our what we call our Rhino product as well, so they didn't change the GTB product. But yes, it has the Brock fill, it has the Brock pad, it has a stone base under it. That field is actually a self-contained system for drainage, if anybody's wondering on how the drainage works there.
So if somebody took a weekend trip to Key West and want to go walk on the field, measure the temperature, like Mr. Engel was talking about, that is comparable to what you would suggest for the field here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that, just 2 seconds, that you just said they didn't use, is that more expensive than what they actually put down?
This product here is, yes, it's a little bit more expensive. It's probably, that was in the number that I shared, if I'm
Yeah.
even close.
Right.
You're probably talking, 25 cents, maybe 30 cents a square foot. When you talk about and this is what I've started telling our clients, recycling's coming. It's better to go ahead and spend a little bit up front than have an issue when it comes time to replace that field, because whoever does the village is, or the school board is, whoever's replacing it, school board. So that's what let's look forward and not look back at what was done. Let's start looking forward and say, hey, this is coming. Let's get an answer for it now.
Richie?
Just a couple of talking points. One, I can tell you that the committee on this project was comprised of village staff and school board staff and also Coral Shore staff, which, by the way, is protocol, and we have followed to the T what the protocol for this process, contrary to all the claims about there being covert efforts and backroom and all that kind of stuff. We followed it to the T. But I say that to say that the committee has supported a self-contained artificial. So and the other thing, and this is loaded, but I want to make sure everybody has a clear understanding. You described the drainage as being horizontal or vertical for artificial, and horizontal. We just said that we're going. Hopefully, this will be contained with the artificial. The horizontal currently is just going, it's drifting south, and I think we all know its direction it's going, or to the west, I should say. To be clear, you're not putting any pesticides, herbicides, or insecticides on artificial turf, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. And to be clear, those things are all necessary to have successful growth in Bermuda. I think we all understand that. To even have a shot, which has proved fruitless over the years for us anyway.
And one follow-up question, Wes. The field in Key West, what kind of drainage does the Bayview Park field have?
So it has a self-contained loop system that all that water is going to be held internally under the field and then eventually drain vertically into the sand. And if the sand gets completely saturated, it will eventually work its way into the water table.
So once again, if somebody has questions, they can go look at the Bayview Park field in Key West, right off of Truman Avenue, and they can see kind of what you're suggesting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you explain at the end of the life of this artificial turf, whether it's 10 years or 30 years, you say it's recyclable. How do you recycle turf?
So currently, the only way to truly recycle, like break the fibers down, is you have to take the fibers off of, you got to take the fibers off of this black backing, okay, because this is not recyclable. So you can chemically recycle it, which is extremely expensive. What everyone's been trying, and when I say everyone, turf manufacturers have been trying to find, is a way to be able to recycle this, not break it down. Pull the infill out. If it's rubber, pull it out. But if it's sand or a natural infill, you can just recycle it. You can take this. A lot of people, when they replace this, they take it and spread it on their other fields. So this is a more recyclable product because it doesn't have the black backing. It's got a soy-based backing.
So when we're ready to replace our artificial turf, where does the old turf go?
This product, by the time you're ready to replace it, it will be recycled. And it'll be, my assumption would be at that point, it'll be broken down into smaller resin pellets or broken down into plastic beads that it will be able to melt it down and blown into another product. Like currently right now in Europe, there's a company that breaks down, they shave the plastic off and they break it down into smaller beads and they turn it into lumber, like the plastic lumber like you use for maybe decking. They do that with it.
From a budget point of view, is that less expensive or more expensive than pulling it up and taking it to a landfill?
So right now we try to avoid taking it to a landfill at AstroTurf. So what we do is we try to reuse it. So we would either have, there are people around the country who would come and take the turf after it's been removed from the field, and they would sell it for batting cages. They would sell it for a practice field. People even buy it for, like if it's got no lines in it, for their lawn or for, underneath a trampoline. So we try right now to reuse, and we have a very good program at that, but we want to take the next step of being able to fully recycle.
Hang on, Coach. Larry, did you have something?
Yes, because he can probably answer the question.
And this comes out of South Carolina, Clemson University. They say that the fields will need sweeping, dragging, loosening, redistribution of infield fill, like you've talked about that a little bit, and then cleaning. Because when I hear about cleaning plastic, we have iguanas that poop on it. We've got everything. We got little kids poop on it out there. So
let's hope not.
There's going to be special solvents and cleaners. Can you address those issues as far as maintenance over the year?
Yeah, so AstroTurf offers an aftercare. We call it our aftercare program. When we come in, we can do it as much as you want. We'll come in and we'll groom it. And grooming it is us moving the infield, redistributing the infield where it's supposed to be. Hey, I'm a country guy, man. I'm not used to those big SAT words. But we move it back to where it's supposed to be. Now, with our product, and I'm going to show you a difference real quick. This is not ours. But if you notice, when you pull this back, you can see the black backing back there. Everyone can see that. When you pull ours back, you see these root zone fibers in there. So that root zone is designed to hold that infill in place so it doesn't move around as much. So you have less maintenance on this field than you would, and Clemson's right, you have less maintenance. I hate they didn't do it on a root zone field than you would on a non-root zone field, because the life of your turf depends on how much your infill moves around. So if you groom it regularly and you take care of your hot spots on a baseball field, first, second, third catcher's area, with just brooming it back in like you would a natural field after the end of practice. Coach, I'm sure y'all did that. But it's going to last longer. So to answer your question about grooming, you get a piece of equipment that hooks behind a gator. You can groom it, take care of it. As far as decompacting, that is a turf system, not ours, that has to be done. We don't have to decompact ours for different reasons. And as far as sanitization, like I said, we have aftercare that can come in and we sanitize your field. Your number one sanitizer in the Keys is that big yellow thing that comes up every day. So it's going to kill 90% of what's on that field. If an iguana goes to the bathroom, or God forbid a kid goes to the bathroom on it, it's clean it up, spray it down just like you would this floor and clean it, right? I mean, there's no difference in that.
Let's before we get to Richie, I know that some of our guys up here are chomping. Let's get a couple questions from the task force, because I think most of you have had a chance to talk. So let's get any questions here. We'll go back to the audience. So Tony, did you have a question?
I just had one comment, Sue, and that is that there's an entire industry right now that's being developed on the whole recycle industry that has to do with artificial turf. I've been reading about it. I've thought, if you had unlimited amounts of resources to invest in a business, there's an up-and-coming business that's going to be there, because it's not just artificial turf. It's all sorts of things, from being an old surfer, from surfboard blanks all the way down line to stuff that is just has been a curse to landfills. And so there's an entire industry coming out of this. So jury's still out on where that's going to go, but I know that they have made great efforts and great strides in recent years in making artificial turf, and they, as they say, 100% recyclable. So,
I do have a question. So I know you keep talking about your company, which quite frankly, if we go with turf, and I hope the school board members are listening, that maybe we need to insist upon that in the system. If there's no other company out there that does everything you're talking about, which kind of sounds like there isn't, and if they've already used it in Key West, then I think that is something, if it ends up being synthetic, that we make sure we get the number one company that's going to be, which if you're Major League Baseball, I guess that's number one if you're going with that.
good.
But, so when you say there's no chemicals used on that field at all, like how do you sanitize it when you sanitize it? And how often with your aftercare system that you sell, obviously, they're going to pay to do that. How often is it done? What does it cost to be done? What chemicals do you use on the field? There's bacteria, there's mold. I know the sun will carry 90%, but and is there any other company? I'm sorry. Are there any other companies outside of you that you know of that use similar quality products that you use? That if they don't go with your company, can we basically count on the other companies to be able to say the same thing as you?
So I'm going to answer that by not answering that. I don't know what they do. You know, this goes back to my coaching days. You know, I worried about Oviedo football. I didn't worry about anybody else. I worried about what we do at
Tell me about
AstroTurf.
your company then. What kind of chemicals, if they put your system in, if you're chosen to put it in, then what chemicals, what do you do to sanitize that field?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know the exact chemical that they use. I can find that for you and be glad to get that back to you. Typically, our customers are once a year as far as a aftercare grooming goes, and that price can move up and down depending on the number of fields, depending on the number of fields we have in the area. Obviously, we have more fields in Key West, so they do take advantage of that program. So as we're coming to the Keys, we would fit, if we were chosen, if this is a turf field and we were lucky enough to be chosen, we would fit Alamorada into that, so that price is at a point where you can get it. Typically, and don't hold me to it,
Right.
that price is somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000 a visit. Is typically what that is. I do know that the chemical that we would use to sanitize the field is not going to be harmful. It's not going to have any kind of biohazard in it. We know kids play on these fields. We're not going to put anything on it to clean that field or in the manufacturing of that field that could potentially come back and harm kids or people.
Okay. And then when you have to come in, how long would it take in just in general in a process? If they started in May, how long does it take to put in this entire system that you're talking about, the whole construction project? About how long?
Full construction from breaking ground is typically somewhere between 75 to 90 days, depending on the amount of work that has to be done infrastructurally before if we're having to put in structures to get the water to a containment facility or a water treatment facility, then that could take longer depending on the amount of structures that have to go in and the piping to get it to the cities or the villages' water system, right? You're typically looking somewhere between that 75 to 90 day period. Turf manufacturing always comes up. How long does it take to make the turf? It takes about 30. We're on a 35-day lead time. Doesn't take that long to make it, but to get everybody in order, that's what it takes.
Okay. And so when you would have to come replace, if you were just, only because this will all take place obviously during the time that it's the village's use of the field in the future. So when they would need to replace that turf, is it quick? Is it easy to replace it? Is it a long period of time? Are we going to lose another 3 months or 4 months? Or okay.
No. So you don't have to replace your drainage,
Okay.
and you don't have to replace your pad. So the replacement of that is typically somewhere between 2.5 to 3 weeks on a baseball field.
Quick.
The next question, I'm sure, is going to be, what's the cost to replace your turf?
There you go.
What I tell people is to figure in about half of the original cost, because about half of your cost is your drainage base and about half of your cost is your actual turf system. So No, that question was coming.
There you go.
I think. So there you go.
Very good.
About half.
No, I think that was really all that I had, and I bring that up, Ron, and council members and whatever, because Alina just said it previously, whatever it costs us to remove, recycle, replace, to initially put it in, even though it's already in the budget, it is the taxpayer dollars. It is our money. So we do need to know that. And as we're doing the baseball license, the field license agreement, I think we definitely need to be extremely specific on that, because even if it's half, $450,000, let's just throw a number, and if that's the number 10 years or, from now, if for some reason it's not written in there specifically that it is all at the cost and expense of the school board, I don't want it coming back to the village that we have to somehow now come up with all this money. So I just think that, again, the importance of, first of all, choosing the right company, which you're here, you're presenting, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yay to you. But I think we need to get whatever it is, if it ends up being synthetic turf, which 50-50 it could be, then I think we need to insist that it is going to, I'd rather spend more money up front to put in exactly the right thing that's going to do everything we can do to keep the environment safe, to keep the future, the kids playing on it safe. But that's one area that just absolutely cannot be skimped on. And if it means cutting out another building or doing something, and if that's the most important thing they're looking at, then I think it's really important. That's where the money needs to go. Because the most important thing in our community, obviously, is our environment. And if we need to make sure that we're using the products that are going to be safest for the environment.
And just to reiterate that point, that was the reason why I made the recommendation about limiting the second building, because I did see that happen with Tommy Roberts Field, which is the one that did flood, is that when I went back and looked at their records, and what happened was it went over budget, and so they cut back on the drainage. And so that's why it's flooding, is because they put the money in the stands, the concession rooms, the locker rooms, and it's very nice. I played football at Tommy Roberts at Key West High School. It's really nice. I went to a few games. But the problem was the field floods because they didn't put enough money into the field. So when I was discussing this with the school district, I'm like, I want that field to be the best in the state of Florida. If you're going to cut anything, cut a building or something, but that field should be the best it can be. And once again, to be clear, we're not selecting or endorsing any particular company. That's going to go from the school board. However, the final say, I keep saying this, is the village council. We own the field, and we have a lot of say in the end. Hopefully, we're having say in the beginning. But my point has just been, I wanted this to be an informational session where at least now we know what to ask. I didn't even know what to ask for. I've learned more tonight than I have in the 6 months I've been here as manager, because we weren't getting answers to the questions because the school district hasn't even started negotiating with vendors yet. They don't even know which company they're going to use, so how do you ask a question when you don't know? So once again, Mr. Allen offered to come here. I told him, look, we're not picking a vendor, just answer questions, and that's why we're here. Cap Black.
You said there would be about $4,000 a year for like a once a year service where you come in and you sanitize and fix up the field. What other maintenance costs? Because right now we have Brightview that takes care of the field kind of on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, depending on the time of year. Is there weekly maintenance that needs to be done on these kind of fields, or what's required?
Yeah, there is. That's a good question, and I'm glad you're asking. A lot of people forget. They think, maintenance free when it's turf, and there is some maintenance. You do get a groomer, which is, like I said earlier, hooks behind it. Imagine a metal crate, like a pallet, and it has really heavy-duty brushes on it. Okay, one of those comes with the field, and you hook it behind a golf cart or a gator, and you drag the field. And we teach you how to do, our company, I don't know about our company, will teach you how to perform that. Whoever's going to maintain the field, we would teach you how to do that. And we do have a log of, hey, this many hours you need to do it. But the telltale sign to me is what you see when you're on the field. Do you see low spots we talk baseball. Do you see low spot at first base where guys are diving back in? Do you see a low spot at second base where guys are sliding in? And if you see that, baseball coaches typically are very particular about their clay field, right? So they're going to take a rake every day after practice, and they're going to rake that area down. What we say is, hey guys, take a brush, go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace, wherever, get a push broom, and brush that area down. Just brush it back in there.
Okay.
If you do that on a regular basis, your field's going to last a long time. It's like your car, right? If you take care of your car or your boat the way you're supposed to, it's going to last, right? So your field's the same way. You know, we have a field right now, Flagler College up in St. Augustine is our turf. It's 14 years old. Now, the baseball coach is extremely particular about what he does every day with his field, but it's 14 years old, and they're not interested in replacing it. So there is maintenance that goes with it, but it's really, when do I need to do it? You know, like I said earlier, if I'm a right fielder, I mean, I played right field for a couple games. I didn't move all game. You know, I mean, I'm not damaging anything out there, and so no reason to really groom that area at that point. So it comes with the groomer. It's easy to do. It takes about an hour. You know, just go out and go with it. But I mean, I don't know.
And
I don't know if Brightview takes care of the rest of the part, but they won't have to take care of the actual field at that point.
Okay, and as far, I think you said there's like 8-year warranty.
Yes.
On that, and that would cover everything that you guys require for making sure the warranty stays up.
Yeah, that would be on the turf side of it. And what that would, the area that gets a little gray in that is the high traffic areas around first, second, and third home plate, you know, where it gets worn in there. If you've been doing your maintenance regularly and there's an issue, then we would discuss that. If we realize, hey, there's no infill here and they've dug all the way through the turf, through the backing, down to the stone, it's not being maintained properly,
Okay.
right? So it's that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me finish up here. Alina,
Yeah, well, I did have the question about sanitizing, but you said that it doesn't really need sanitizing.
No, ma'am. I mean, we do with our aftercare, but it's, you know, I was a teacher. We check a lot of boxes. It's checking a box.
And you also mentioned something about a bad hop.
Yes, ma'am.
Because of the lip, which you don't get with natural grass.
You don't get that with turf. With natural grass, if you think about a baseball field, you have you have grass on the infield around the pitcher's mound, and then you have clay, right? So as you irrigate, as it rains, that clay begins to move away from that lip. And it's, in my opinion, I took care of a natural grass field one time, and that is the hardest thing to take care of and keep that lip down, because when that ball skips off that grass and it hits the clay, it changes speed, it changes, you know, the trajectory of that ball at times, right? And if it hits that lip, it can really change the hop. And that's where we see, you know, ball to the face or ball into the body on a
Just
kid.
about
So-
teeth high when
Yeah.
it takes that hop.
And on a synthetic turf field, you don't have that lip between the grass and the clay area. It is on our turf system. We have a system where it's a ½ inch difference in the fiber, but it's not a true hard lip that would cause it to skip.
So when you are going to lay the plumbing, shall we say?
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it.
And we obviously don't have a whole lot of dirt here. So do you dig down into the coral, into the bedrock? How does that work?
Yes, ma'am. So that comes back to an engineer when they do a geotechnical report on how deep the ground actually is, what kind of dirt we're working with, where the coral is, where the water table is. All that comes back to us. I have had situations, I got a situation right now in the Panhandle that's near a body of water that we're actually building the field up instead of taking it down. So we're going to build it up a few inches that allows us not to get into their groundwater table up there, because it is going to be a system that exits the field and goes to a water treatment facility.
Are you familiar with LTG Sports Turf One?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
I spoke with Wes Harden
He's a good
earlier
friend.
today. Yes, he said you were a good guy.
He's lying. He's lying.
So he said that they do a lot of your installation.
They do a lot of our plumbing work in South Florida, our drainage work. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did they do the plumbing work for Key West?
No, ma'am. AstroTurf is a little different. That we're also AstroTurf Construction. So we are a general licensed contractor in the state of Florida, so we can do our own work. LTG Sports Turf One is a partner of ours that we've used quite a bit in South Florida. They do good work. I have nothing negative to say about them other than Wes played football at James Madison University, so I try not to hold that against him. Hope he's watching. So They can do that. We have no problem with them doing the dirt work, the site work, the civil of that, and us doing our turf if that's what the school board decides they want to do, or the village, whoever makes that decision.
Okay.
And I will give them a plug for their natural work as well. They do natural grass, and they do a really good job.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do both,
Yeah.
actually.
Sandy, I'll be too nice.
Let me just throw out a couple things because there's nobody representing the school board, and I will do so as I understand things. I'm not really qualified in the way that Pat would be or other representatives, but I'll tell you what I know, and I think Jamie in some cases will be able to verify this. She's done extensive research, as all of you have, and I just want to say thank you to each one of you. I know you poured a lot of time and energy and emotion into this, and we all want to get it right. I think that's a given. Couple of things that were in passing. The committee has recommended that we build out for multiple reasons, and that is protection of the root system, and also it allows for the taper. So if you're asking, is it going to be down or up, we're going up. Secondly, and Jamie, you spoke about this before, the $5 million was a marker that they placed, and that was multiple years ago at this point in time. I'm not talking about inflation or anything else, but let me give you a correlative. In Key West, when they're building Tommy Roberts, and this was years ago, so again, inflation's gone crazy since, as we all know, but they had a marker of $15 million. If you're following that project, they are well in excess of $20 million. So if the question's asked, are they going to invest in the safety of our kids? Yes, it's paramount. And if that needs to be a change order, they've already established that they will take care of change orders. And Ron, I know that I think the language is already ironclad, but I know you well enough that there will be no discrepancies in the language dealing with installation and restoration of all of the products. That is by the ILA specified as being the school board's responsibility, their financial responsibility. So hopefully that gets out in front of a few other questions or issues.
Thank you. Sandy, Sandy, hang on a second. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have a short statement and a question. I wanted to thank our manager, Ron Saunders, and the committee for putting a magnifying glass on all of the language agreements and the subtle nuances of the legal language, and make sure that there's safeguards in the language to protect the village. And then I have a question. My question is, I don't think this has really been mentioned, and maybe it can't be answered today. It is a field, but it's also a park. And the park, I live right across the street from the park. I've been here over 40 years, so I've seen it go from a resort to, what it is now, which is wonderful. But I'm wondering about the 80 to 89 protected, many of them mitigated trees, mature mahoganies and so forth that are part of our park, and how the engineers would address protecting the root balls and the root systems of all of the trees that are part of the ball field area. Is your company familiar with doing that? Do you take aerial views somehow, and can you look underneath the ground, and know it's there? I mean, I'm serious, because if the water's all rerouted a certain artificial man-made way, all of a sudden, a year or 2 or 3 later, trees start dying. And that would be a shame. And it would be, someone needs to be responsible for that if that goes awry. So that's why I'm asking the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Is that from me?
I think your question is, if I can interpret, when I first came on, when I met with the school district, I said a non-negotiable thing was don't take any trees out. Because the initial plans, I think they were talking about taking out the trees. And they responded positively, and they literally moved the infield fence in away from the trees, which is how they're able to put some of the buildings in. And so that's still, from my standpoint, from the village's standpoint, non-negotiable. We don't want anything impacting the trees negatively. Sandy brought something I hadn't thought about as far as the watering is naturally going through now. I think the question is, if you put in an artificial turf surface with the drainage, man-made drainage, how do we make sure that the trees are still getting sufficient, underneath the ground water?
I personally don't have an answer to that. I'm not an engineer. I don't have a hydraulic analysis of the site. I don't have a hydraulic analysis of the dirt or the groundwater now. So I can't answer that. Now, that would be
And I'm not saying
definitely
you
a
should, I'm
question.
saying I think that's a good point that we will obviously continue to talk to the school district about.
I have one quick question. So we talked about the heat, and you said that this new field in the summer, on a hot summer day, you're talking about 90-degree air temperature and maybe 120 to 130 degrees on the field. Would that be correct?
Yeah, if it's dry.
Okay.
If the infill is dry, yeah, I could see that. Yes,
Sure.
ma'am.
Okay, so in this multi-use field, this is when our community kids are out there on their, summer break. We have leagues that play, little 6 and 7 year olds that are playing soccer. And how is that going to impact them when you have such a much higher temperature?
And I think that's why you're here tonight.
Right.
I think that's the debate. I can't answer that for you because I'm not going to program your events, right?
Well, I don't think we have a choice
Right.
because we do use that field
Yes,
during the
ma'am.
summer for the leagues.
What I can tell you that I've seen is these fields, okay, and I know I worry about AstroTurf. Y'all worry about Isla Mirada. You don't worry about what City of Miami or City of Miami Beach or Lauderdale does, right? But in my experience, if you drive up the turnpike, you get off on those roads and you go to parks, there's turf fields there, and those kids are playing on them at that point during the day. They're there. Now, it's a decision. Again, I have no skin in this game. I'm not making a decision whether it's synthetic or grass, but that's why we're here tonight, is to decide that.
Did you say earlier that you did the George Meyer Field, the junior football field?
Yes, sir.
I was down there about a month ago in Key West, and actually one of our school members' grandson, Yvette Talbot's grandson, played. And so she and I actually went on the field and talked to the coaches. Their games are at 3 in the afternoon. I think that day was like 91 degrees temperature. And we walked on the field. We asked the coaches, how do the kids play on this field? They said it was fine. We both knelt down on the field, and I didn't sense, obviously it's middle of the afternoon. So I guess the question is, when you're doing Key West, because we're all familiar with Key West and how hot it gets, because if it's hot here, it's hot there. How does the temperature play in? Do you do anything differently in the Keys than you would do, let's say, in Sarasota?
No, this is what's used all in Sarasota, Manatee County. For reference, this is what's used at IMG Academy. I think we're all familiar with IMG. If you're a sports person, all their baseball infields, their stadium field, they use Brockville. The Citrus Bowl, or Camping World Stadium now, it's used around there. There's over 500 Brockville fields across the country. University of Colorado football stadium. I know it doesn't get hot there, but they used Brockville and a Brock pad, and AstroTurf is their turf provider there at that stadium now. So,
And are you finished with Bayview Park? If we went down there now, tomorrow, let's say, what's there is that the final product?
yes, sir, that's it.
So
We're
any
done.
questions we have as far as what's going on there? And I was going down every weekend. I watched this from the beginning.
Yes.
When you took the grass out, and it was about a 70-day process.
Yeah, that one might have been closer to 60. It was it went pretty quick.
And so all the cost numbers, all of the analysis, because it's a city, it's public record, and we can find out everything that you've done and verify what you've said. I'm making sure you know that's public record, so we're going to compare that to what's actually going on down there. Anything else we need to know about Bayview Park Field, because that's one I'm familiar with, that would relate to Founders Park?
No, it's the turf system minus the GTB. Again, keep that in mind. You would never know because you're not going to pick the turf up and look at it. But it is the Brock field, it's the Brock pad, it's a self-contained drainage system. There shouldn't be, there's nothing, no other.
But you're recommending us do it, if we did this, a little bit better than what Key West did.
I am telling everyone that talks to me now about turf because what I know is coming with recyclability and environmental effects, especially a coastal community, that I strongly suggest going to our bio-based GTB product. Now, that's up to the owner or customer to make that choice. But that's, if you ask me today, what's my opinion is best for the village and the school board, it would be this for the future.
And a field the size of Bayview Park, you said that you think the estimated cost for Bayview to the city of Key West was about $980,000. But if in the end somebody went with what you're saying, another, what, 20,000?
I'd have to pull back up the square footage.
rough
Yeah, I
numbers,
think you're
basically.
roughly around that, yes.
So
sir.
overall, you're still looking at about, rough numbers, $1 million for the ball, just the ball field.
Yeah, depending on what the drainage is underneath of it. And keep in mind that drainage, depending on what you have to do, if you're building up, if you have environmental concerns with the trees, there needs to be a protection there, or whatever that is through an engineer, that can increase the price of that drainage system.
And just for the public that's watching, the reason I'm asking is that it went from the whole number of 5 million to 6.16 million. But when I asked the school district why that increase, how much was the field going to be, I was told they hadn't even negotiated the price with vendors, which leads me to believe, let's say you took $6 million, subtracted $1 million from the field, that $5 million is going to go into 2 buildings. But yet when they removed the second building, they only reduced the cost estimate by $500,000. So I'm trying to get the numbers squared away in my head because I'm a numbers person. And so that's why I'm asking specifics about the field. I want this field, speaking for the council and the village, to be the best field it can be for our kids. But we need to make sure we understand, what the best field is, and that's why we're asking these detailed questions tonight, is that if that is the decision, then let's make sure whatever's there is the best field you can be. So I just want to make sure, once again, that the Bayview Park field, which we can go down and look at any day, is what you're saying would be the most comparable to what you think should go here.
As far as turf system, yes, sir.
And maybe we can, to help Sandy and her concern, maybe we can have the school board have a landscape architect work with the civil engineers so that they're taking into account that watering of those trees. And I think that'd be a reasonable request so we don't lose any of those trees and the roots that extend from that, because they go out quite a bit. So that might be something we can look at.
I want to make sure that everybody's, because this has been an interesting presentation. Ed, did you have a question or comment? Okay. Cheryl.
I have one last question. Okay. Thank you. I do have one last question for you, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Since I assume this plastic does not convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, it has no benefit to the environment.
I do not believe it converts carbon dioxide.
That's all I need to know.
into-
Thank you.
I believe you are correct.
And earlier, just because sometimes we take things for granted, explain what the PFA is. I think you kept referring to it, but the acronym, for people that are at home, maybe explain what you're referring to.
Yeah, so it's PFAS. It's a forever chemical, and it's found in plastics. And through AstroTurf's manufacturing process, there are no detectable PFAS molecules in our manufacturing process. So what does that mean? That means when our turf is made and it's in our building, when that comes off the line, there's no detectable PFAS. When it is shipped, it has PFAS immediately. PFAS is everywhere. That's just the fact of the world that we live in.
I know that Frank up in the booth, I know that Brian Cohn is a member of the task force. He was going to try to zoom in. Do you know if he's watching or want to ask any questions? I'll make sure that all questions from the task force. Is there anybody on Zoom, I guess that's one question. Anybody on Zoom that wants to ask a question to Mr. Allen since he's up here?
We have no one on Zoom with their hand raised, and I do not see the previously mentioned gentleman on Zoom.
I just want to make sure anybody at home that wants to zoom in, this is your shot to ask any questions about artificial turf, because we're getting a lot of information, but I want to make sure that if you have a question, and by the way, if you can't get in the questions tonight, please send them to me at Village Hall, and I will stay in touch with the City of Key West, with Mr. Allen, whoever else. We've been talking to a couple, the Vice Mayor and I, along with a couple other councilors, were at a League of Cities convention a couple months ago, and we saw some vendors up there, got some information from other than AstroTurf. So it's not just AstroTurf we've been talking to, just to be clear, we're talking to whoever wants to give us information. And so if you have questions that weren't asked tonight, get them to us and we'll try to get answers to those questions. Let me go through one more time. Ed, if you want to talk, let's get the microphone. And once again, I'll come back to you guys. Now, Tony, before we end with him, did you have a presentation you want to still give?
Yeah, I just want to, one from the survey I did where I did the temperatures all over the fields of Miami, and then one other just showing a field, and then I have a handout that I'll give everybody.
I have some emails from Wes Harden, and I will send those to you because I asked him for a comparison for natural grass and turf.
Ed? Captain Ed?
The issue of PFAS, the older products had some significant PFAS contamination, right?
Yes.
Okay. Second of all, everybody should be aware of this, that a statewide analysis was done about 1.5 years ago. It appeared in the Key West Citizen twice, and it found that the Florida Keys has the highest PFAS, that's polyfluoral, et cetera, contamination of any county in the state. We're at 80 parts per trillion. That's how nasty this stuff is, parts per trillion. The EPA limit is 4. We're 20 times in our public drinking water, 20 times, and this is, of course, bad stuff for kids. So any other exposure to kids is more sensitive issue because of that contamination of our drinking water. And the other thing is the shedding of microplastics and nanoplastics now. And there's a lot of new studies about that, and I'm going to make some of that stuff available for everybody to study because it's that we're all contaminated with plastic and additional sources we have to be paranoid about.
Cheryl, did you have something else? Wait for the microphone. Once again, this is being telecast, and you'd be surprised when people are watching.
Getting my workout tonight.
And so, that's why we're making sure you're on the microphone, because we want people at home.
I don't have a
talk.
question per se. I just want to thank Mr. Allen for this presentation. Mr. Zetwalk had some things he wanted to present for the step, but I don't know that Mr. Allen wants to hear some of this. I just wanted to let him sit down if he'd like to or whatever he wants to do. But that was the only thing. We didn't have any more questions for him.
I just want to make sure anybody has a question gets to ask their question. So come back again. Anybody up here have any more questions, Mr. Allen? Nobody in the audience, nobody on Zoom has any more questions. Thank you, Mr. Allen. You're certainly welcome to stay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And again, I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much. I know there's other vendors you've spoken to, and I think I always tell my customers, I think you should. Let's not just go by the first car we see or the first house we see. Let's figure this out, because this, I can tell you with AstroTurf, it's not just a field. It's going to be, and you talked to Marcus, I'm sure, in Key West. It's a lifetime. Like, we're there for you the whole life of your field. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the questions. Again, I got no dog in the fight. It's going to be a choice that's made by the citizens of Key West or the council if it's going to be turf or artificial. But I do encourage you to find the most appropriate turf system you can, whoever that may be, for your kids. So thank you very much.
And as we asked the professor, can you give your contact information? Because we want to hear from both sides.
Yep.
How do people get in touch with you if they have any questions?
So my email address is wes.allen, ALLEN, @astroturf.com.
Do you have business cards you can leave over there?
Unfortunately, I don't have any business cards. Trying to reduce the amount of paper we use in the world.
Well, and to follow up, what we're going this is being recorded, and so this will be on our website, so you can look at the whole meeting in case you missed anything. And I'll also get all the contact information on our website for the professor earlier and for Mr. Allen, so that you can go directly to them, because some people don't want to say something publicly or have a question they don't want to ask. I think that the more information we get out there, the better. And so certainly, we'll get your contact information and the professors and anybody else tonight that wants it.
Would you like for me to leave these?
I would.
You got it. All right. Thank you.
I got a front yard I need stuff in, so why don't you leave a bigger sample?
Email me. You can like 1,000 samples. I'll send it to you.
Right on top of the system.
Okay. And once again, a reminder, we've had Vice Mayor Horton here being the microphone person, but I'm continuing to check my phone because we have Mayor Mahoney on. We have a council person, Deb Gillis, Anna Richards, and Steve Friedman. They're all watching. Once again, all 5 council people are either here in person or watching this. And so just to know, they are listening to the input tonight. And I think that's important to say, because we've heard the public wants to know what's going on, and the mayor's making her thoughts known to me one-on-one too. So I think Tony had something he wanted to present, and he already worked it out with Frank. So Frank, if you're ready, let's let Mr. Hammond do his presentation.
Yeah, Richie, why don't we go ahead and give those papers out if we would. Give them to everybody that may want one. And this is purely the pros and cons that I've been able to accumulate over time. And then also at the end, some of my coaching comments that represent 40 some odd years of baseball coaching and some of the concerns I have. I'm more concerned, quite honestly, about injuries on natural fields that can't be properly maintained or are not properly maintained. I won't even say can't. Bad hops. Our injuries that we've had over the last 3 years have all been related to field and hops and uneven surfaces. Right now, the iguanas are digging these massive pits out around the borders that we actually have to go out and catch to keep from digging holes where kids could step in them right along the fence line. And we have to stay on that because from one practice to the next, there'll be a hole. I just want you to watch. This is a guy that's been coaching college ball, D2, for 36 years. What he starts with has nothing to do with my pastoral experience, but I just want you to see it. And then I spent 2 days in Miami back over a month ago doing field temperatures on artificial fields, and also went over to Alex Rodriguez Field, or as I know it, Mark Lake Stadium, and taking temperatures there. So you'll see that as the second video, but let's take a look at this real quick. Frank, I may need your help. You got it?
Not understating it, but it felt like heaven. I don't know what heaven feels like, but
Jeff Messer has been coaching baseball at Slippery Rock University for 35 years, but this year will be his first on turf. Nearly $1 million has been poured into Jack Critchfield Park and over 139,000 square feet of turf. From the backstop to the warning track, the ballpark is covered in green stripes and brown turf, with the school's logo in center field and the rock embedded behind home plate. And there's more.
well, we anticipated the field being, A1. It was going to be top notch, but we didn't. I don't think
bullpens were above and beyond what we thought.
The university has also added over 12,000 square feet of practice.
Not understating it.
Let's
but
pause
it
it
felt
right
like
there,
heaven. I don't know
Frank.
what heaven feels like, but
Jeff Messer has been coaching baseball with the school's.
A1. It was going to be top notch, but we didn't. I don't think we,
Frank, can we pause it?
bullpen.
Okay, so here goes this is my work in Miami, and this will actually give you the temperatures, and I have a printout of that as well. I can give you the figures. I'm standing at Kendall Soccer Park, where there's 5 or 6 soccer fields, all with synthetic turf. The outside temperature right now is in the high 80s, between 89 and 91 degrees. I'm going to walk out on the field and get a temperature reading of the field and just take a look at what the fields themselves look like. This is September 27 and 28. I'm shooting directly at the field right now. You can see the temperature as I walk. Scan up.
Yo tengo bastante dinero.
Going back down, shooting directly on the field. So that's your temperature on the artificial surface. Here's the temperature shot directly on the grass, right next to the soccer field. I'm gonna scan around and walk up onto the turf itself. This is directly an area where the sun has been beating down on it. another location, right in the direct sunlight. This is just walking along the field. Here's a reading on the sidewalk. So, see the concrete sidewalk is warmer than the soccer field, obviously. This is another soccer field further into the complex. Again, same readings. Again, these are shot between 4:30 and 5:15 to give you an idea, which is equivalent to our practice and play times. This field has the pad underneath. I can feel it. Very soft, very forgiving. No wrinkles, no creases. There's the temperature right now on the asphalt in the driveway, the parking lot. So you see the difference in temperature here. These videos, by the way, were all taken on September the 28th, and it's just now 5:04. So get the time frame. This is about the time we'd be playing baseball. I'm at Tropical Park right now. It's 5:31. As you can see on my car clock, and it's 88 degrees out according to my temperature here. I'll check it when I get outside. This is Tropical Park, and there's the reading outside, standing in the parking lot. Here's the reading on the field. It's actually just come off rain. All the ball fields here that are clay are all covered in water, so they'd be unplayable. There's a small artificial surfaced little soccer field, 2 fenced-in areas. A bunch of guys back in that area playing. Looks like they have 4 of them here. I'm going to read the temperature. This is direct sunlight shine right on this field. Here's the main field at Tropical Park, football field, soccer field, with a track surface all the way around it. I'm going to get a reading on this blue track surface, pretty standard track covering. Here's the reading. Reading on this track surface is 106 degrees. Frank, for the sake of time, let's go ahead and stop that. And I'll run through some of these, the wrap up on some of these. I went to, the next morning, I went at 11:30 in the morning, I went to Kinder Lakes North and took a shot at an outdoor basketball court. Much like we have here, it had a blue surface on it. It was 132.4 degrees to between it and 132.6. Then I went over to Alex Rodriguez Park, University of Miami, and that's natural grass. And their natural turf reading was at 12:48. That was 98 degrees on the natural turf. Then I went up to Orange Bowl Sprint Park, which is a field that had been installed 10 years earlier, football field. Got there between 1:30 and 2 o'clock, and the field temperature was between 91.4 and 94.6 degrees. Then I drove down to Doral Meadows Park, which had a field that was the oldest of the fields with a lot of the pebble backfill on the surface, which is black, the infill as they call it. And the outside temperature was 92.6. up to 109. This was all protected by the turnpike. This is the air temperature. And then I shot temperature on the field. I'm sorry, the 109 was the field temperature, and then shot it again on the natural grass baseball field. It was 102 to 102.2 to 100.4. And as I said, the field's been down for 10 years, and I shot directly on the black with the infield on the old turf to show you the difference in technology. That turf, the reading was 138.9 to 113 degrees. So the reason I left those numbers there is, number one, if I want to be truthful and honest about it, those are the readings, but it was on an older field that had been down for that many years. So that gives you a direct reading on what we have here in South Florida. I went out just now, or this afternoon, and looked at the grass around the field. By the way, that's not artificial, that's natural grass around the pool out there. And the temperature was 96 degrees, air temperature was 90 to 91.9. And then the splash pad was 100.7 to 96, and then the concrete around the pool was 105.8 to 106.7. The pickleball court this afternoon at 4:56 was 109.8 up to 118.7. So those are hot courts out there. And then I had some others that I did around here a few days ago, but we'll save that for later. But I just wanted you to see those temperatures and show you that we're not having those numbers that some people are coming in with in terms of the extreme difference between the artificial and the air temperatures and natural grass. So that's all I wanted to show you tonight.
Any questions?
But I think it was Wes who said that 90-degree air would be about 120 to 130.
Right,
for
and
the
I
field.
never found any like that.
Okay.
Even because that's sort of what I expected to find. And I think one of the things that I would stress is, as he showed, this product and everyone that we've talked to has said, yes, this greatly reduces the temperature underneath there. So we need to make sure that when we're talking to people about whatever they put down, that they put down this infield to really keep the temperatures down. And I agree with that. I think the last thing in the world we want is to have our kids out in. By the way, there is a regulation now. I put it in that sheet that I just gave you with the pros and cons. The very last comment is a rule in Florida now about the temperatures that you're allowed to play and practice in. And you have to follow that guideline.
And we do have a question from Mayor Mahoney. She said you brought up the iguanas. Do they dig under the artificial, or is it just real grass? In other words, and I think that's a valid question. We do have iguanas here. If we did have artificial turf, what is the difference, I don't know if you know the answer, between them digging in the real grass versus artificial turf?
Sharon, they're right along the fence line, and they're digging in the clay that we have along the perimeter of the field. I found the same thing down at Island Christian. They would come out and dig on my pitcher's mound, and then also sometimes on the around where the shortstop plays. They like to get in that clay, but what they're doing is they're laying their eggs. And so, fortunately, we have some great iguana catchers that are also baseball players for Coral Shores High School.
Let me get I think Larry wanted to give are you done with your presentation, Tony? I think Larry Zetwalk wanted to, we're kind of going back and forth. Obviously, I think Larry's a grass advocate, so we'll hear from him. Okay.
Thank you, Ron, the committee. I mean, actually, I think this has been a very informative meeting. Some people have heard this 40 years experience and all that. So my background in health and safety goes back to 1973 in the military. For 10 years, I was the life support officer in the military. The airline, I was human factors, which put the people part of it in there. And then as far as my teaching with Alamorada, I've been doing that for 12 years. And that actually started in 1988 across the field because I worked at this place, and that's where I first started teaching. I'm going to go back. I'm going to try to reset why we're all here. You know, Pat LaFear, I heard him, I was sitting right over there, and thank you for bringing it up, said this field was going to be pristine. And I've heard constantly that the county is going to do the maintenance when it's in season. And yet, as Tony says, that doesn't really happen. And I've heard about going to do this, going to do that. Well, who is going to be the on-site supervisor for the maintenance? That's what I look at. Who is going to be here looking at our field? Now, everything I've read, and this comes from Dr. Lambert at Clemson University. This is second edition put out 2024 about best management practices. And Clemson pretty much has all grass fields, baseball field, everything. Baseball fields are different from football fields. So when we talk about injuries, and even in football, you have contact and non-contact. I talk about contact. Anybody here ever worked on a 13-year-old who has a concussed? I have. Their eyes are open and nobody's there. And that's why I ask about the compressibility of the turf when it gets wet, because water doesn't compress. It's totally different than air. And the maintenance, and we're talking about health and safety benefits of natural grass versus synthetic turf. And everything I read says the maintenance on them, if you do it correctly, is the same. You know, we've had to talk about cooling off fields. We don't have to cool the grass. We talk about iguanas. All right, if the iguanas get on the field, and you yourself, Ron, have said you got a turf burn. Well, if a iguana pooped on it and we didn't disinfect that, it may look clean and you got a turf burn on it. Now you got MRSA. And that's something you don't get from natural grass. The health and real safety of this. I've personally spoken to 5 local doctors. Here's letters from Dr. Morrison and Dr. Papp, and they're totally against switching to synthetic turf. And people talk about the history. Dr. Papp has 15 years of baseball experience. He is the orthopedic consultant for the Baltimore Orioles. And I heard today that, I don't know, that all of a sudden Major League Baseball is going to synthetic. Well, my research shows it's roughly 5 and 25. 25 of the fields are grass. And Dr. Morrison treats pediatrics in our field as anybody under 18. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about our children who are not adults. We provide them a place to play that should be safe. And I have a nice quote here that came from why is turf easier on ankles, knees, and on, here we go. Divots. When a cleat creates a hole in the field, signals the grass has absorbed force from the cleat and released the cleat back again, rather than capturing the cleat and releasing the force through a player's foot, ankle, or knee. There's the difference. Every study that I've come across, Dr. Morrison has looked, Dr. Papp has looked, Dr. Zuba on little ones, he's against it. Shows there are more injuries on synthetic turf than grass. Now, to Tony's point of view, which I love, is the field's not maintained. Why isn't the field maintained? That's the whole issue. And then you have to look at that with, that's 4 months or 5 months, and we're going to have that field the rest of the time. And it has to be maintained to a certain level, maybe not to daily baseball games level, but it needs to be maintained so it can be brought up to speed. And when we talk about Brightview, Is Brightview sending a supervisor down here to see what they do? Because that, again, comes back to maintaining that field. We talked about life expectancy. If we spent $100,000 a year on that field, it would probably be pretty good as a grass field. But that's what we're going to spend if you really look at putting a new field in and replacing it every 8 years. Now, the gentleman who was here, I've been here and I've replaced, I tell people concrete's consumable here. Everything gets used up in this place because the heat, the humidity, and we have no pollutants out there, so the sun is more intense. If you've ever driven up to Miami, some days you catch it, you can see the haze hanging over Miami, which cuts the sun down. So, and my last concern is, which has been brought up, we can make all the decisions in the world, but when it goes to the county, they're going to do a request for bids, correct, Ron?
Well, to be clear, when you say the county, you're referring to the Montgomery County School Board.
Yeah, excuse
not
me.
the county.
Yeah.
We don't control their process, so, but my understanding, I think is what you're asking, is that they're going to go out for bids for the turf. I think they've already selected Keystar as the contractor, but as far as the vendor for the field, I was told as of, I think, last week, that they have not opened negotiations with the turf vendors, because their plan does say turf, not grass. And so as far as their process, that's my understanding. I don't know if they're going to do an RFP. I assume they would, a request for proposals, but they didn't tell me the details. Maybe Richie, Richie's going to speak next, and maybe Richie can address that.
My question is that request for bids going to include the base, the irrigation, all the things that we've heard that if we choose synthetic, that it needs? You know,
let me respond to that then, I guess.
And this
After what
goes
I heard
back-
tonight, that our input would be, once again, we're kind of parallel. They're the ones taking the first steps, but they've asked for our input, and we've been obviously giving it to them. And so my input would be, in talking to Mr. LaFear, who might be watching for all I know, if not, it's going to be recorded, that we would like for them to make sure these issues are addressed. If they're moving forward with the turf, which is their official policy, that we want to make sure all these protections are included. They don't have to. Of course, then the council doesn't have to agree with what they do.
This is what Jamie was getting at, because there is a history of things that have been negotiated that haven't happened. I mean, when the school board doesn't know there's a facility here that's been here how many years? And they built it. So, in protecting our kids, who is going to protect our kids? I'm sure Tony will do it if he's involved in the baseball team. But we got to give him something to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Richie, did you want to go next?
Yes, sir. I have a couple loose ends. I hope to tie up a couple loose ends. And first, I thanked each of you for your participation and you know, what you poured into this process. And I'll restate, I know your agenda is our agenda. It's what we want, what's best for our kids and our community. The other thing that I want to commend Ron. He's taken daggers from everybody. I get that. But I think what he's done is very sage. And showed a lot of wisdom in navigating us through this process. It's been give and take on both sides. Nobody's going to feel like they got everything, and nobody's going to leave thinking they didn't get anything out of this. The third thing I'll bring up, I should have mentioned before, but our plan, I met with Chaz, who is the, heads up Keystar, and also the gentleman who's assigned the foreman role, I guess, oversight management. And we talked about the layering up and all the different processes and so forth, and the containment and all those things. And I don't think that yes, they will put them out to bid, but my understanding is they're not restricted to taking the lowest bid. Again, I think the priority is based off of safety and the bigger picture. The last thing I want to say, and I circle back to where the concession stand and the concession stand and press box. We are very blessed. I guess I've been doing this for 47 years at Coral Shores, and I was baseball coach for more than half of that, athletic director for 34. And if that seems like a lot, this guy over here was my head baseball coach when I was a sophomore. And so, yeah,
That's true.
exactly.
That's true.
And a heck of a
Why does
coach,
he look
by the
much
way.
younger than you then?
Yeah, I know. A lot of people will question that. But all appearances to the contrary, he's actually a little bit older than me and a whole lot wiser. And he's built up a Rolodex of contacts. I've certainly acquired some over the years. And Ed Holly has all the college contacts because he's coached at the college level. And I say that to say that the materials that we received, the expertise that we've leaned on for both where this facility should be. I'm talking about the concession stand slash press box, and also the turf field, artificial turf field. That didn't come from us. I mean, in part it did, because we've been we're not guessing. We're talking to people who are not guessing. And these are people who have witnessed this. The soldiers that have been out in the field. And I heard terms like plausible and theoretically and so forth. We're not talking about that. These people are, collectively, there's got to be decades, probably hundreds of years of experience. Heck, we got 100 between the two of us. And we've leaned on folks that are a lot smarter than us, who have a lot better background, because we're privileged to be able to talk to those people. And I've been doing that for 5 years, almost 5 years, since this process appeared to be taken off. So, please know that I could spend, an hour sitting here giving you the rationale, but trust that we've done our homework, and trust that we placed it there for a reason, and trust that we weighed. And by the way, you ask Tony, you ask me, baseball guys, it's counterintuitive to think that we would want, that any of us wanted something besides grass. But as you do the research and as you listen to the experts in the field, as you talk to the coaches who were the witnesses, they all point in the same direction. So I thank you guys once again. Ron, I thank you for your efforts as well.
Any questions or comments?
One quick comment.
Richie, they may want to have a question or something.
No, that's okay.
Any questions for Richie before he goes back?
I would want everyone to know that, and what Richie said is absolutely true. I was a pro natural grass only baseball guy my entire life. That's what I played on. That's what my dad played on in 1918. So, I'm natural grass guy. But as I looked and I began to interview coaches and players of all levels that have played on artificial turf, baseball only. Now, I'm talking about baseball. The comment was always, I wouldn't go back, I wouldn't trade it. It is the best. We've had more injuries since I've been coaching again that have been related to field problems, hops, etc., divots, than we have to anything else. I do not want to throw Brightview under the bus on this one. Please understand, Brightview does the best job they can with the time they have and the resources they have. When I did a baseball game at Island Crest, I worked every day on the baseball field, much to the disappointment of a lot of parents and probably a lot of kids and teachers, because I spent so much time having to maintain the ball field. On game day, I would start at sunup and go all the way until the end, getting the field ready to play. It is an extremely challenging job to do it right. And so Brightview has a limited amount of time. We do need to give them some more coaching and training, and we need to have the coaches that have the authority to be able to come in and say, hey guys, we want this done this way, and be able to get that done. And I think we could do better in that area. But I think the artificial turf will eliminate the injuries that I've seen our students at Coral Shores have over the last 3 years. I believe that turf will eliminate those injuries.
Cheryl?
Tony,
Cheryl,
you-
and for the record, introduce yourself. We all know you, but if you're
Cheryl
watching.
Culberson, Plantation Key. Tony, I'll bet that something would help, but nothing's going to help that field until it's properly prepared. And if it were properly prepared as it should have been 25 years ago, you wouldn't have the injuries you're looking at. There's still coral sticking up out there, and you know it, which means nobody's done anything they should have done to take the coral cap off of there, dig down, prep the field, and do anything else. And that has to be done to put this piece of plastic up there. Let me point out something else, and I agree with you 100% on Brightview. The most important thing you can negotiate in this contract with whoever maintains the field is they must be trained by people such as, if you go with artificial turf, they have to be trained by people that know how to maintain it, and that includes rolling that field, properly preparing it, making sure the drainage goes down. But if we go back to what should be down there, not this plastic bag done up in a fancy manner, but real grass. But if it's on a proper field with proper preparation, it will last a long time. Basically, if you use anything like this, we might as well take every public trash bag that we take home, throw it out there and say, let's wrap the park in plastic. That's all we're doing if we do that. To make even a bigger point, I'm appalled at, Ron, I want to thank you for showing us all what happened when you discovered the use of that second building. It was amazing, but Richie, I'm going to tell you right now, when we walked in that room, it smelled like my 14-year-old brother's room used to smell. That's not a compliment, in case you're wondering. It means it hasn't been maintained, and anybody that left that room like that needs to have the back of their head slapped. It was reeked. It was inexcusable. If we're going to have people come use a building or any facility, they need to maintain it. The concept of putting up the mausoleum front that was originally presented in the drawing is appalling. That building was too big for the area. It reminds me of the mausoleum sitting at the cemetery as you drive up the Palmetto. It's about between Sunset and Bird. That's how that building looks. Put up something simple, something easy. And actually, Jamie, I'm not a person that likes to sit behind home field. I'd rather sit out the third baseline. But I agree with you, more seating, most people do like to sit there. Work that in. You got people that manage to get an engineering degree and an architect degree, then they're smart enough to figure that out. Do something simple. Keep everything going down the first baseline. Keep your dugouts where they're supposed to be. I spent a lot of time in dugouts doing scoring for my brothers. So that's not that hard. But bottom line is preparation is everything. It prevents putrid poor performance. That's an old adage that comes from military families. But getting the building done properly is great, but we need to put real grass back in over a properly prepared field so that no one gets hurt. And this has never converted one bit of carbon dioxide to oxygen. It doesn't do our environment any good. And if you look at our mission, our job is to protect the natural resources and our environment. We need to stick with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other input from the public? Jerry?
We've been here since, Jerry O'Cathy. We've been here since 5:30. I very much appreciate, Ron, you're getting all this together as you have, and everything that's been brought forward. This is basically reflections of an AstroTurf denier. Having attended several meetings involving the village and the school board, as well as having referenced numerous relevant articles, I remain convinced that grass fields are the only reasonable answer to this turf question debate. With reference to the baseball field use agreement, Exhibit A, it is a given that notwithstanding Monday through Saturday tournaments and practice games, our field is designated for use for approximately 16 to 17 weeks of the year. If the field, approximately 100,000 square feet, were to remain as originally intended and exclusive of any separate and specific use agreements to the contrary, I would urge the village council to entertain, with regard to the previous 7-1 vote, a revote or referendum to allow reconsideration of that decision. There are numerous medical confirmations that there is a direct correlation of higher incidences of athletic injuries associated with the use of our artificial turf over natural grass. Another and equally convincing consideration is that of pediatricians, epidemiologists, and that of Mount Sinai Hospital scientists, and their post-statement Children and young adults are uniquely vulnerable to harmful exposures to artificial turf surfaces. It further states this vulnerability persists throughout the teen years as reproductive and nervous systems continue to develop. Some proposed solutions might be, with consideration in regard to the relatively short duration of the scheduled yearly use, perhaps a step towards a remedy to this conundrum may be one of calculating a specific user fee of sorts to offset any additional user-caused damages to the field which would not normally otherwise occur. It is the stated intention and objective of the school board to build none other than AstroTurf ball fields with school board funding. The spending philosophy may very well be interpreted as one of investing on an AstroTurf-based economy of scale. That is to say, all future fields built with Monroe County School Board funding are to be artificial turf. Number two, the current fields and any resulting health concerns will remain for an expected turf lifetime of 10 to 12 years. The example provided was Sigsbee Elementary School, Key West. Fortunately or not, those making this decision will likely have long since retired without realizing the rewards, dangers, or disappointments of their decisions. In conclusion, and pertinent to the question at hand is, I did not perceive the observed Monroe County School Board discussion as one which was necessary for the greater good of the village of Islamorada residents and Founders Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else from the public? Last call for discussion. Okay, I'll come back to the task force. Once again, I think we've had good input tonight. I'll remind everybody this meeting's being recorded, and it'll be on the website hopefully tomorrow. If you want to go back and if you missed parts of it or whatever, we'll try to get all the materials we received. If you have something else you want to have on the website, get it to me. We'll try to get it on the website. So we want as much information out to the public as possible. We got the names and addresses, or email address at least, of the two presenters for the grass and artificial. So hopefully if you have questions, you can go to them too. So let's do a final round and go through and see if Tony has anything.
No, thanks everyone for your input. Again, I still stand by all of my statements I've made and the pros and cons, and when I weigh the pros and the cons, I still fall on the artificial surface side, which is a surprise to me, but that's still where I fall.
Jamie?
Thank you so much. I think this has been really informative. I think it's given everybody the opportunity to kind of get both sides from two professionals, the doctor and also Mr. Allen. So I appreciate that. And Larry and Cheryl and Ed and everybody else, Jerry and Sue and Sandy who actually spoke. I think it's really important. I want to take it back to where we started also. And that is that the school board may be paying for this. It is our property. This park belongs to the residents of the village of Islamorada, and the baseball field license agreement specifies that the village of Islamorada gets basically the final decision as to what's going to happen. So they can't do this without our approval. And I'm looking at Don Horton because he's the only council member in this room, but I'm talking to all of the council members. I kind of get the impression from hearing things around town that the decision's already been made because the school board has already made the decision. And I will ask you all to really open your ears and listen to what everybody's saying. Maybe not just your little nucleus of people that you hang out with. I've reached out to as many people as I can. I think many people that spoke tonight did also. But I guess I'm just asking the village council members to truly listen to what the people, look at all the people that just spoke against artificial turf. And these are people that deeply care about this community because they took the time to make the phone call. And I know, and Tony on the same side going for it. They took the time to drive around Miami and do everything Tony just did. I mean, I appreciate you doing that. That was also very enlightening to see that. But I bring it back to what Richard said earlier, which is we need another survey. We need an official survey done by you as the manager. Maybe Alina recommended each one of us putting in 2 questions or 1 question or whatever. It has to be for 30 days. It needs to go out there, and it needs to be for everybody, be given the opportunity. It needs to be on Facebook. And it can only be people like we tried to do before. It is contained to the people who are residents and property owners here in the village of Islamorada, not outside people, because it's our community, it's our park, and we should have the final say in it, no matter which way it goes. But if we do that, I think we have then checked every box and have gotten the questions answered. And in the end, if it doesn't go one way or the other, it was a fair process. It was out in the open. Everybody had an opportunity. And so I truly thank everybody, but I'm getting this impression. We keep talking about the turf because guess what? The school board decided the turf. They've been talking about it, Richie was just saying, they've been talking about it meeting for 4 years. But we didn't know about it because nobody came back and reported at the village council meetings. Nobody. And I asked for the meeting minutes. I said, well, let me just see the meeting minutes from the past 4 years or however long. Nobody could provide meeting minutes until you, Ron, went to your first meeting back in March, April, whenever you got on, in May, was it? No, there are no meeting minutes. There's no notes. There's no conversation. There's nothing official from the meeting that I have been given, and I've asked for it, and I know you've asked for it. So in order to solve all of that chatter in the back, I just think that you should definitely do what Richard recommended and Alina recommended, that we go back and do the survey, but that we need to stand on what's good for the village of Islamorada and not be bulldozed by the school board just because they made their decision and they're on their timeline and they have to have their answer and they need to do their budget and they need to, no, sorry. It has to be what is to the benefit of everybody. What do the village people want, right? What do we want for this? And we all want the best for our kids, and I will say they damn well better have that field in pristine first-class condition for our kids to step on that field for that first home game to play, because they deserve it. Those students work so hard. Those coaches work so hard. That field needs to be upkept. So if Brightview's not on that field right now, Ron, every day or however long they need, I know Tony said they don't have time. Well, guess what? Pat LaFear, the school board members, and you as the village manager need to go back to them, and Maria or somebody from the village needs to be there, AJ, telling them, here's what we need done, and this is how it needs to get done, and this is what we need, this is when we need it by. Because I'm getting the feeling that if Brightview is left in charge, we're going to have the same conversation in January that the field's in terrible condition. So that, I just, again, my last point, we need a survey for 30 days so that everybody gets input and there's no more questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Richard.
Oh, I think we've learned more this evening than I think in the last 3 months, just from having people that are actually experts at what they, at their positions. That being said, I know Tony has expressed that we need to keep moving forward to try to keep this on track, and I do agree with that, but we still have time to move forward and to review things. We have several months before the end of the year. I think doing a survey and actually bringing this up at a village council meeting to get some preliminary discussions going, and maybe pick someone from this to give a report to the council there in the public eye to say, this is what we learned, this is where we're at. Just because I know when this comes to the village council, it's going to be a multi-day meeting, because you're going to have people, it's going to be a midnight style meeting. I think just the sooner we get more information, the better to move it forward. So that's all I got.
Alina?
Well, one of the things that I found out today is that LTG Sports Turf One installed the baseball field at Marathon High School. And this company that Wes Allen is familiar with, because they do some of the drainage work for that company. The accounts manager that I spoke with is Wes Harden, and he's very informative, and he has sent me some emails that I have now, and I'm going to send them on to Ron, and I asked him for a comparison of natural grass and artificial turf. And they're one of the few companies that handle both. So we will have more information to give out to everybody, and maybe we can even put that on the village website as well. As far as the survey, I think that has to be done, because Mayor Mahoney's survey, everybody poo-pooed it, said it was one way or to the other. So we need to have maybe, 2 questions from each member, and then brought forward, and maybe your 5 questions from each member, and have a total of 10 questions on the survey that maybe Ron picks out. We need more public input. I can't tell you how many people I speak with who have no idea that this is happening. And the other thing that we need to remember is, okay, so this has been all about the baseball team, which is how many students, Tony?
Well, you have about 200 kids playing Little League, and then you have...
But they don't play here.
You have 18 on varsity. Well, no, they can't right now because of the condition of the field. That field cannot facilitate them like the artificial surface could. That's what's limiting it right now. The only T-ball field that we have is Friendship Park in Key Largo. So we have our JV team, which is in the neighborhood of about 20 kids, and about 20 on varsity. So you can't just say, I've heard that before, well, we only have 9 kids. Yeah, you got 9 kids on the field
40.
of a team, but that's not accurate, because...
So does anybody use Harry Harris? They have 2 ball fields over there.
I can't answer that. I would have to check with Little League. But I know that we have, like I said, we have over 200 kids in Little League. Last time I checked with the Little League president. Certainly, I was Little League president at one point, and that's how many we had. We don't have enough fields right now, and there's no senior league field. The only senior league field is here.
This is the high school.
But I'm saying, if you play Pony League,
No.
or
How many kids play high school baseball at this field?
I answered that already. You've got...
But you keep going back to 200 kids.
Because I'm trying to tell you what would be on the field if it was open and we had an adequate playing surface. And Pony League, Senior League, American Legion Baseball, all of those baseball could be played out here. You have to have a certain size field for certain age groups. Right now, because of the natural turf and the way the baselines are, you can't do that. So we can only play the high school and JV baseball teams out there right now. Even junior high field is a little bit smaller, so that would not work out here.
So back to then the license agreement. I think we need to really tighten this up, because what Tony's saying is he wants everybody to play out here.
No, that's not what I said.
I think so.
No, I said the senior league teams that are high school age would be able to play on that field. I'm a high school baseball coach. I don't really care what the decision is. I'm just telling you what the community needs and what I hear people saying they want. You know, I keep hearing these things about, we've talked to so many people who have said this or said that. How many of those have kids involved? How many of those people have even been to a baseball game? You know, I mean,
Totally my point. We are focusing on simply the baseball team. Now, I would like to expand that conversation, because this is our park. And so, you know, this is strictly the high school baseball field usage.
That ship sailed 20-some years ago when the village was incorporated, and we entered into the interlocal agreement. And we gave up any place to put a baseball field at Coral Shores. You were still a student there at the time. And that the ball field has one place that it can be, right there. And that was the interlocal agreement. I happened to be here at the time, I believe it was with Mike Lannon, and that agreement was entered into. Everyone was in agreement from the first council forward. And so that ship sailed. Whether we like or don't like the field at Founders Park, we don't have an option now. So we have to find the best possible playing surfaces for the most number of students we possibly can have.
Like I'm saying.
I'm confused. I don't mean
Let's-
Wait. No, I need to clarify this. Wait. My understanding, so you can clear this up, Ron. My understanding is the baseball license agreement is for Monroe County School District and Monroe County School to use our park, baseball park. It's not, I get Little League, but it's not Little League. It's not for Little League. It's for Coral Shores High School, and PKS has a beautiful new field over there that I don't see anybody using. But I'm just saying, am I correct that are we talking about like I'm hearing two different conversations here. I thought the license agreement was for the Monroe County School District for Coral Shores High School baseball. Is that what we've been supposed to be talking about?
That's what I want to clarify.
Okay.
Okay. The agreement's with the Monroe County School District for the Coral Shores High baseball team. But what Tony was saying, and that's, right now we have an agreement with a grass field. Because it's a grass field, the only team that's been out there is the Coral Shores High baseball team, and we're not changing that. I think Tony's point, to clarify, is that if they went away with grass and started with artificial, that opens it up for more activities. That does not necessarily mean that's under the school district. I think maybe what Tony's referring to is at the option of the village, not the school district. If the village wanted to have more activities there, not just baseball, it could be other stuff, that would be a decision outside of the use agreement. The use agreement is specifically, we made it specific for the Coral Shores High baseball team. I asked Laura Leetart, the principal, to give me the schedule, and I haven't gotten it yet, but apparently it's the same every year. My point is, that doesn't really change.
This is all there is.
It's pretty much the same every year. So the use agreement, that's why I just used the old one, because it's not going to change. We may have to redo the ILA, because we're bringing up some things that actually are contradictory to the current ILA that we may have to take out, like having to do it annually. What's the point of annually if it's the same every year? But to Tony's point, the argument for turf has been that some people, I'm not saying it's universally agreed to, some people want more uses of that field, and you can't really do that with a grass field. That's one of the arguments on one side of the that we've heard. That's the point, but that's not for discussion tonight. I don't want to get into what might or not go there. My point is, if that's a discussion, that's discussion be held at the village, not the school district. The school district's negotiation is specific to the baseball team.
And that's where I was trying to go, because these other leagues, the American Legion or Pony League or whatever, that's all played in the summer. That would fall back on the village.
The village would make a decision on whether we wanted that. I mean, I get calls all the time. Can we use the pool? Can we use the church? You know,
And if
we
they
have properties
do,
we want to use now.
and if they do agree to it, I certainly hope they're going to pay more than $10 a year to utilize that field. And I certainly hope that the people who are coming, who are not residents of the Village of Islamorada, are paying the $15 park entry fee, and that we're getting the parking fee and all the other monies out there. Because this kind of opens it up to the conversation we had previously. This is exactly why I said that license agreement needs to be extremely specific as to what the use of the field is. And you're right, if it opens up to other things, it goes to the village for something else. But they absolutely would need to include more than $10 a year to use that field, and that they would have to take part in maintenance. And then you're probably going to get into with the school board. If you've got all these other people on that field using it and using it, if the school board is paying that bill, which is us as taxpayers also, Who's going to, what are they going to pay to make sure that that's going to be taken? So that opens a whole can of worms. So the only thing we're talking about is the agreement with the school district with 30 kids on the baseball team, right?
Well,
or a little
varsity
more.
maybe too.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We have more. We have steady bats that are there. Once baseball ends, then steady bats comes in. They come in with all ages, playing on the field as it is. It's mainly doing batting practice, fielding ground balls, things like that. Every Tuesday and Thursday, that goes on all the way through. I don't know if it's still going on now or not, but I know it has been. So we have a team of coaches that help do that.
Okay, I think we've addressed the issues that I was trying to get the input. I don't want to get too much conjecture what might or might not happen if something else does happen. I do think, though, we got good input tonight. Once again, I remind everybody I have 5 bosses, and so they're listening. All 5 are listening. They've been texting me during the meeting, and so I know they're watching. We have Vice Mayor Horton here in the audience, but the other 4 have been watching. I'll meet with them individually and ask for direction as far as what to do. So I'm not saying yes or no to anything because it's really I work for the village council, but I do think that we got good information. And once again, this will be back on the website as of tomorrow. I'm getting a text from one of the council people now, and they said they've been on nonstop all night. So yeah, they want to remind everybody they are watching at home, and so I think they're getting good input tonight. I think that the document discussion is good, and I want to get back with all of you about that because I think you raised some good points. The school district has not gotten back to me, so what's on the website is what I gave them that they've told me they're having their staff look at. I'm not sure how much more is to look at, but I will get back to you guys individually. We'll put it on the website. As far as the revised plan, I agree. I don't like it behind home plate. That's just my personal opinion. I'll keep at it, but that's their official position until they change it. Surveys, et cetera, I will talk to council members about that and what our schedule is. But what the commitment I did make is I don't want to be the one delaying something going forward for the baseball team. So within a reason, I think Richard has a good point about the scheduling. We have some time, but on the other hand, some people we just want to get this thing going. We've been talking about this stuff for 4 or 5 years, and well, when I say we, okay. But once again, a reminder: I came in April, and so I think we've made a lot of progress since April. I can't speak before April, but I think as far as transparency and public input, I've heard more in the last couple of months than you probably heard in 4 years. I think we'll all agree on that. And so I think going forward, we still want to get the best agreement we can. We still want the best field we want for the kids. We want as much money as possible in that field. I don't want any cuts to that field. That field needs to be, whatever it ends up being, the best it can be. So I think with that in mind, we'll move forward. We'll have everything on the public website. Once again, any input from the public, if you're watching it from home, contact us. If you have any materials you want to get out to the public, we'll be happy to publish that. I know Lena has some information to get to us. So once again, I want to thank the members of the task force, your volunteers. We're here till about 9:15, 9:20. We've been almost 4 hours. I thank the members of the public that showed up in person. I don't know how many people are watching from home. I know at least 4 council people are. But I think it was a good meeting, and I appreciate everybody being here. And with that, I will call the meeting to a close at 9:19. Thank you.